Rain hammered against bulletproof windows as Isabella Cruz stood frozen in Damian Moretti's private office, his lips still burning against hers from a kiss she never asked for. His father's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "You expect me to believe this nobody is your woman?" Damian's hand tightened around her waist, his grip possessive enough to bruise. "Believe what you want. She's mine." In that moment, Isabella understood three things clearly. She'd just become the fake girlfriend of New York's most dangerous mafia boss. His jealous ex-fiancé wanted her dead, and backing out now would get her killed faster than playing along. The game had begun, and losing meant more than just her job. Before we dive into this storm, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. Bite. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime that felt entirely too cheerful for what waited on the 63rd floor. Isabella Cruz stepped into the reception area of Moretti Holdings, clutching a leather folder against her chest like body armor. Her reflection stared back from polished black marble walls. 26 years old, brown eyes too wide, pencil skirt and blouse carefully chosen to project competence she didn't actually feel. Her hands trembled slightly. She forced them still. "Ms. Cruz?" A woman in her 50s with severe cheekbones and ice-blonde hair looked up from behind a curved desk that probably cost more than Isabella's yearly rent. "I'm Patricia. Mr. Moretti's expecting you." The emphasis on Mr. Moretti carried weight. Warning, maybe. Or pity. Isabella had spent 3 days researching Damian Moretti after accepting this executive assistant position. Most of what she found online painted him as a ruthless billionaire businessman, 32 years old, heir to a real estate and investment empire, known for hostile takeovers and zero-tolerance management style. Tabloids called him Manhattan's most eligible bachelor. Business journals called him a genius. Nobody mentioned the other reputation. The whispered one. The one her cousin Maria had warned her about over cheap wine and cheaper takeout 2 nights ago. "You know who he really is, right?" Maria had leaned across the coffee table, voice dropping. "Damian Moretti isn't just rich, Bella. He's connected. Like, connected. My friend Carla's brother worked security for one of his warehouses. Said he saw things that don't make it into quarterly reports." Isabella had laughed it off then. Mob rumors, urban legends, the kind of stories people told about anyone too wealthy and too private. Now, walking behind Patricia down a hallway lined with abstract art that probably cost more than Isabella would earn in a lifetime, she wasn't laughing. Patricia stopped at towering double doors made of dark wood, knocked twice, and pushed them open without waiting for a response. "You're 9 o'clock, Mr. Moretti." The office beyond could have housed Isabella's entire apartment 3 times over. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of Manhattan that made the city look almost peaceful from this height. Rain-slicked streets and brake lights bleeding red through the downpour. The furniture was all sharp angles and expensive leather. Everything smelled like cedar and something darker she couldn't identify. Damian Moretti stood with his back to the door, phone pressed to his ear, one hand shoved in his pocket. Tailored black suit, broad shoulders, dark hair cut precisely enough to look effortless. When he turned, Isabella's breath caught despite herself. The photographs hadn't done him justice. Or maybe they'd been too kind. Sharp jawline, olive skin, eyes so dark they looked black in the office lighting. Handsome in a way that felt dangerous. The kind of face that made smart women forget to be careful. But it was something else that made Isabella's pulse kick up. Something in the way he carried himself. The casual authority of someone who'd never been told no and wouldn't accept it if he was. "I don't care what the contractor says." Damian's voice was smooth, almost pleasant. "The building permits get approved by Friday or his company loses every contract we've given them. Make it clear." He ended the call without goodbye and finally looked at Isabella properly. "You're early." "You said 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock." One dark eyebrow lifted slightly. "Most people show up 15 minutes late for their first day. Blame traffic, coffee, whatever. I'm not most people." "Clearly." He moved to the desk, gestured at one of the chairs across from it. "Sit." Isabella sat, crossed her ankles, kept her spine straight. Patricia had vanished silently, closing the doors behind her, and the sudden privacy made the enormous office feel smaller. Damien settled into his own chair with the kind of ease that came from owning everything in sight. He didn't open her folder, didn't look at her resume, just studied her face like he was reading something written there. "You went to Columbia," he said finally. "Business degree, graduated top 15%. Solid, not exceptional. Spent 2 years at Morrison and Associates before they downsized. Then 6 months unemployed before landing here." He leaned back. "Tell me why you want this job and don't give me the rehearsed answer about career growth." Isabella held his stare. "Because I've been hemorrhaging savings for half a year and you're offering double what Morrison paid me. I want financial security. This job provides it." Silence stretched between them. Then Damien's mouth curved. Not quite a smile, but close. Honest. "I like that." He pulled a thin stack of papers from his desk drawer, slid them across. Non-disclosure agreement. "You see confidential information here, you don't talk about it. Not to friends, family, journalists, or random strangers in bars. Break it, and the legal team destroys your life. Read it, sign it." Isabella read. The NDA was aggressive, threatening, and probably illegal in 3 different ways. She signed anyway. Desperation had a way of blurring ethical lines. "Good." Damien took the papers back. "Your job is simple. Manage my schedule, screen calls and emails, coordinate with department heads, attend meetings, handle travel arrangements. Patricia's retiring next month. She'll train you until then. You work 8 to 6, sometimes later if needed. Questions?" "Just one." Isabella set her folder on the desk. "What's the real reason you hired me?" Damien went very still. "Excuse me?" "I've been unemployed 6 months. My resume has a gap. There were probably dozens of candidates without that problem." She kept her voice steady. "So why me?" For a long moment, Damien just looked at her. Then he stood, walked to the windows, hands clasped behind his back. "Patricia's worked for me 8 years, he said quietly. "She's competent, professional, exactly what you'd expect. But she's also comfortable. She doesn't push back when I make stupid decisions, doesn't question anything." He glanced over his shoulder. "You interrogated me 30 seconds into your first day. That tells me you're not looking to coast. You want to prove something." "To who?" "Yourself, probably." He turned fully. "I don't need someone who agrees with everything I say. I need someone smart enough to recognize problems before they explode. Your 6-month gap tells me you're hungry. Hungry people work harder." It was a good answer, probably even true. But something in the way he said it felt incomplete. Before Isabella could push further, the office doors burst open hard enough to slam against the walls. 2 men in dark suits entered first. Private security, clearly, with the kind of build that came from military training and protein shakes. Behind them strode an older man who could only be one person. Vincent Moretti. Isabella had seen photos. 60-something, silver hair, expensive suit, the kind of presence that commanded rooms by default. But pictures hadn't captured the coldness in his eyes, or the way everyone in his vicinity seemed to flinch on instinct. "Get out!" Vincent snapped at the security. They left immediately. Then a woman glided in behind him, and Isabella's stomach dropped. Celeste Devereaux looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine spread. Model tall, platinum blonde, wearing a cream dress that probably cost more than Isabella's car. Beautiful in that polished, untouchable way that made regular people feel vaguely inadequate just by proximity. She smiled at Damien with the confidence of someone who already owned him. "Surprise, darling." Damien's expression went carefully blank. "What's this?" "What does it look like?" Vincent moved to the desk, planted both palms on it. "We're finalizing the arrangements. You and Celeste, married by end of summer. The Devereaux family controls shipping from Boston to Philadelphia. This alliance strengthens our position, consolidates territory, and puts us ahead of the Calabrese family permanently. We've discussed this." Damien's voice stayed level, but Isabella heard the edge underneath. "I'm not interested." "Your interest is irrelevant." Vincent straightened. "This family doesn't run on your personal preferences. You think your grandfather built this empire by doing whatever he felt like? Sacrifice, strategy, strength. That's what leadership requires." Celeste circled the desk slowly, trailing manicured fingers along its edge. "Damien, don't be dramatic. We've known each other since we were children. Our families have always planned this." She stopped beside him, placed one hand on his shoulder. "It makes sense. We make sense." Isabella sat frozen, watching this unfold with growing horror. This wasn't a business meeting. This was an ambush. Damien shrugged off Celeste's hand, stepping sideways to create distance. You want an alliance? Fine. Structure a partnership, joint ventures, shared investments, whatever. But I'm not marrying anyone to close a deal. You don't have a choice. Vincent's voice dropped to something dangerous. This marriage happens. Your grandmother already approved it. The families are negotiating terms. Unless you have a very good reason why not, the contracts get signed next month. The silence that followed felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Isabella should have stayed quiet, should have made herself invisible. This was family business, power plays happening miles above her pay grade. But Damien looked at his father with something that almost resembled desperation, just for a second, barely visible. And Isabella understood with sudden clarity exactly what kind of trap he was in. Powerful man, powerless moment. Then Damien's eyes flicked to her. Just once. Fast enough she might have imagined it. Except she didn't imagine what happened next. Damien crossed the office in 3 strides, grabbed Isabella by both arms, and pulled her out of the chair. She barely had time to gasp before his mouth crashed against hers. The kiss was brutal, possessive, demanding in ways that shorted out her brain completely. His hand slid to the back of her neck, fingers tangling in her hair, holding her in place. She tasted coffee and something darker, felt the scratch of stubble against her chin, smelled expensive cologne mixed with rain. Every nerve in her body lit up like a live wire. When he finally pulled back, Isabella's knees genuinely wobbled. She grabbed his suit jacket just to stay upright, heart slamming against her ribs so hard she thought everyone in the room could hear it. Damien kept one arm around her waist, tight, possessive, and looked directly at his father. "Meet my woman." Vincent's face went purple. "You're what? You wanted a good reason?" Damien's voice stayed perfectly calm despite the chaos he'd just detonated. "Here it is. I'm already in a relationship, have been for months. So your marriage arrangement is unnecessary." Celeste made a sound like a wounded animal. "You're lying." "Am I?" Damien glanced down at Isabella, and the look in his eyes almost convinced even her. "Tell them, sweetheart." Isabella's mind went completely blank. This was insane. Objectively, certifiably insane. She'd been in this office less than 20 minutes, didn't know these people, didn't understand what kind of power struggle she'd just become ammunition for. But Damien's hand squeezed her waist, not quite painful, but close, and she understood the unspoken message clearly. Play along or watch this explode in ways that bury both of us. She swallowed hard, found her voice. "It's true." The words came out shakier than she wanted. "We've been together since before I even interviewed." Vincent's eyes narrowed to slits. "You expect me to believe that? You never mentioned any girlfriend. Not once. Because it's none of your business." Damien kept his arm around Isabella, pulling her closer against his side. "I keep my personal life private. But if you're forcing my hand, fine. Here's the truth. I'm with her. I love her. And I'm not marrying Celeste or anyone else you pick from your approved list." The word love hung in the air like smoke. Celeste laughed, sharp, cutting, disbelieving. "Love? Her?" She gestured at Isabella like she was pointing out trash on the sidewalk. "Look at her, Damien. She's nobody. Where's she from? A catalog? Rent-a-girlfriend service?" Anger flashed through Isabella's chest, hot and immediate. "Excuse me?" "You're excused." Celeste's smile turned vicious. "Whatever he's paying you for this little performance, it's not enough. Walk away now before this gets messy." "I'm not performing anything." Isabella straightened her spine, pulling away from Damien just enough to stand on her own. "And I'm not walking anywhere. So maybe you should take your designer dress and your family contracts and—" "Enough." Vincent cut her off with a single word. He stared at Damien for a long, cold moment. "You're making a mistake. This girl, whoever she is, she's not one of us. She doesn't understand this world. And when reality hits, you'll remember this conversation. I'll take my chances." "Will you?" Vincent moved toward the door, paused with his hand on the frame. The engagement announcement was already drafted. Invitations printed. Both families are expecting this alliance. He looked back. "You've got 72 hours to come to your senses. After that, we proceed as planned, with or without your cooperation." He left. The security detail followed. Celeste stayed behind just long enough to give Isabella one final, poisonous look. Enjoy the next 3 days, sweetheart. They're all you've got. Then she was gone too, and the office fell into ringing silence. Isabella jerked away from Damien like she'd been electrocuted. What the hell was that? An impulse decision. He moved to his desk, poured whiskey from a crystal decanter into 2 glasses despite it being 9 in the morning. Possibly the stupidest one I've ever made. Possibly? Isabella's hands shook. She balled them into fists. You just kissed me in front of your father and told him we're in love. I've known you for 20 minutes. 18, technically. He held out one of the glasses. She didn't take it. Look, I panicked. My father's been threatening this marriage arrangement for months. I thought I had more time to figure a way out, but clearly I was wrong. So you decided to use me as a human shield? Yes. No apology, no shame, just flat honesty. I needed a reason they couldn't argue with. A girlfriend they didn't know about gave me that. Isabella stared at him. You're insane. Probably. Damien drained his whiskey in one swallow. But it's done now. And unless you want to walk out that door and leave me to handle the fallout alone, which would mean explaining to my father that I lied, which would end very badly for both of us, we're stuck with this story. For 72 hours. For as long as it takes to convince them the relationship is real. He set the glass down. Look, I know this is sudden. I know it's unfair, but I'm offering you a deal. Play along, help me sell this fiction, and I'll triple your salary, plus a bonus when it's over. Enough money to make 6 months of unemployment feel like nothing. Isabella wanted to scream or cry, or both. Instead, she grabbed the whiskey glass and drank it herself. The liquor burned down her throat, clearing her head just enough to think. Triple salary, bonus, financial security. All she had to do was pretend to date a man she'd just met. A man who might actually be connected to organized crime. A man who'd just kissed her like he owned her and was now casually proposing fraud to his entire family. This was the worst decision she'd ever made. She could feel it. Fine. Isabella sets the empty glass down harder than necessary. But we need rules. Boundaries. And if this goes sideways, you're paying my legal fees. Something that might have been respect flickered across Damien's face. Deal. One more thing. She crossed her arms. Why me? Really, not the hungry employee answer. The truth. Damien studied her for a long moment. Because you looked at me like I was just a person. Not a name, not a reputation, not a threat. Just a person. He picked up her folder from the desk. Everyone else who walks through that door already knows who they think I am. You didn't. I needed someone real. It was probably manipulation, probably calculated to make her feel special, important, chosen. It worked anyway. Okay, Isabella heard herself say. What happens now? Now? Damien glanced at his watch. Now we have 72 hours to convince my father, my ex-fiancé, and probably half my family that we're madly in love, which means you're about to get a crash course in my life. Starting tonight. Tonight? Family dinner. My grandmother's expecting us at 7. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Welcome to the Moretti family, sweetheart. Try not to get killed. The rest of Isabella's first day passed in a surreal blur. Patricia trained her on scheduling systems, contact lists, and filing protocols like nothing unusual had happened. Maybe she didn't know. Maybe she'd been dismissed before the chaos started. Or maybe this kind of drama was just normal operating procedure in Damien Moretti's world. Isabella couldn't focus on any of it. Her lips still tingled, her hands still shook. Every time she replayed what happened in that office, the kiss, the lie, the deal, her stomach flipped between nausea and something that felt dangerously close to excitement. By 5 o'clock, Patricia sent her home with a stack of reading material about the company's various holdings and a sympathetic smile. He's demanding, Patricia said at the elevator, but fair, you'll be fine. Isabella wanted to tell her the truth, that she'd just agreed to fake date her boss to help him avoid a mafia marriage arrangement, but the NDA probably covered that too. Instead, she just nodded and escaped. Her apartment in Queens felt especially small and shabby after spending a day in Moretti Holdings. Cracked tile in the bathroom, kitchen barely big enough to turn around in, furniture from thrift stores and sidewalk finds. But it was hers, paid for with her own money, decorated with her own choices, free from the kind of complications currently destroying her life. Isabella stood in the shower until the water ran cold, trying to wash away the memory of Damien's mouth on hers. It didn't work. At 6:30, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Car's outside. Wear something nice but not formal. My grandmother hates trying too hard." D. Isabella looked at her closet with something approaching panic. She didn't own anything appropriate for dinner with a mafia matriarch. Her nicest dress was 3 years old and starting to pill at the seams. Everything else was work clothes or weekend casual. She settled on a simple black dress, pearl earrings her mother had given her before she died, and the determination not to embarrass herself more than absolutely necessary. The car waiting downstairs was a sleek black Mercedes with tinted windows. The driver nodded at her without speaking, held the door open like she was someone important. Isabella slid into the back seat and immediately jumped. Damien was already there. He changed into dark slacks and a charcoal button-down, sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms that shouldn't have been as distracting as they were. His hair looked slightly damp, like he'd showered recently. "You look good," he said, eyes traveling over her dress in a way that made her skin heat. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Look at me like—" Isabella gestured vaguely. "Like we're actually together. Save it for your grandmother." Damien's mouth curved. "We need to establish chemistry. Make it convincing. That means flirting, touching, behaving like a couple even when we're alone. Practice makes perfect." "We're in a car." "Exactly. Low stakes." He shifted slightly closer. "Tell me something real about yourself. Something I'd know if we'd been dating for months." Isabella pressed against the door. "Why?" "Because my grandmother's going to interrogate you like a war criminal. She'll ask questions, poke holes, test every detail. If we can't answer basic information about each other, she'll know we're lying." He stretched his arm along the back of the seat, not quite touching her. "So, something real. Start simple." This felt like a test, or a trap, but he was probably right about the interrogation. "Fine." Isabella watched the city slide past beyond the windows. "I'm an only child. My mom died when I was 16, cancer. My dad remarried 2 years later and moved to Arizona. We don't talk much. I put myself through Columbia with scholarships and 3 part-time jobs. Graduated with honors, but also with enough debt to drown in." She glanced at him. "Your turn." Damien was quiet for a moment, then, "My mother left when I was 8, just packed a bag one night and disappeared. My father told everyone she died, but that was a lie. She's still alive somewhere, Europe, last I heard. Never tried to contact me. My grandmother raised me after that. She's the only person in this family I actually trust." The honesty surprised her. Isabella had expected deflection, charm, the practiced answers of someone used to controlling information. Instead, he'd given her something raw. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "Don't be. It taught me early that people leave, that loyalty is conditional, that love is just another transaction." He looked at her directly. "Useful lessons for the life I was born into." The car turned onto a tree-lined street in the Hamptons, pulling through ornate iron gates that opened automatically. Beyond them, a sprawling estate materialized from the darkness, stone walls, manicured gardens, enough square footage to house a small village. Isabella's heart kicked into overdrive. "Any advice?" she asked as they rolled to a stop in front of marble steps leading to a massive front door. "Yeah." Damien opened his door, came around to hers, offered his hand. "Don't let her see you scared. My grandmother respects strength. Show weakness, and she'll tear you apart just to test if you'll bleed." "That's comforting." "It's accurate." His fingers closed around hers, warm, solid. "Stay close to me. Follow my lead. And remember, we're in love. Madly, stupidly, can't keep our hands off each other in love. Sell it, or we're both dead." The front door opened before they reached it. A butler, an actual butler, gestured them inside without expression. The entrance hall beyond looked like something from a historical drama. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, oil paintings worth more than Isabella's entire existence. Everything gleamed with old money and older power. Voices drifted from somewhere deeper in the house. Damien's hand tightened around hers. "Ready?" "No." Good answer. He pulled her forward. Neither am I. They walked through a series of rooms that got progressively more intimate. Parlor, sitting room, finally a formal dining room where a long table was set for 8. Only 3 seats were occupied. Vincent Moretti sat at one end, already pouring wine like he owned the place, which he probably did. Celeste Devereaux perched in a chair halfway down, somehow making even sitting look aggressive. And at the head of the table, a woman in her late 70s watched them enter with eyes that could have cut glass. Vivian Moretti, the grandmother, the matriarch, the real power behind the Moretti empire, if the rumors were true. She wore pearls and a navy dress that probably cost more than Isabella's car, her silver hair styled perfectly, posture immaculate, beautiful in that ageless way money could buy. But it was her gaze that made Isabella's breath catch, sharp, measuring, missing absolutely nothing. Grandmother, Damien crossed to her, bent to kiss her cheek. You look radiant as always. I look old. Don't lie to me. Vivian's voice carried the kind of authority that made lying physically difficult. Then her eyes shifted to Isabella. And who is this? Isabella Cruz. Damien pulled Isabella forward gently. My girlfriend. Isabella, my grandmother, Vivian Moretti. Vivian's expression didn't change. Sit, both of you. They sat. The silence stretched like taffy. Then Vivian lifted one elegant hand and staff materialized from nowhere to begin serving. Salad course, wine, bread. The choreography was perfect, silent, and somehow menacing. Vincent tells me you've been hiding this relationship, Vivian said, eyes fixed on Isabella. Why? Isabella's mouth went dry. Damien's hand found her knee under the table, squeezed once. You've got this. Privacy, Isabella said, surprised her voice came out steady. Damien's life is very public. We wanted something for ourselves before the media turned it into a circus. Sensible. Vivian's tone gave nothing away. What do you do, Isabella? I'm Damien's executive assistant. The truth felt dangerous here. I started today, actually. Fascinating. Vivian sipped her wine. You began dating your boss before you were hired. Some might call that inappropriate. Some might. Isabella met the older woman's gaze. I'd call it complicated, but we didn't plan it. Sometimes things just happen. Across the table, Celeste made a disgusted sound. This is absurd. Damien, just admit you're lying. End this farce before it gets more embarrassing. The only thing embarrassing, Damien said coldly, is you showing up uninvited and acting entitled to a relationship that never existed. We've been promised to each other since childhood. You've been told we'd be together. I never promised anything. Boys, Vivian's single word cut through the argument like a blade. Enough! She turned back to Isabella. Tell me, dear, what attracted you to my grandson? The question felt like a minefield. Too shallow and she'd sound fake. Too deep and she'd reveal how little she actually knew him. Isabella took a careful breath. Honestly, at first I thought he was terrifying. She ignored Damien's surprised look. Powerful, demanding, completely out of my league. But then I saw him exhausted after a 16-hour day, running his hands through his hair and staring at the city like he was trapped in a cage. And I realized he wasn't just this untouchable figure. He was human, tired, overwhelmed, carrying more weight than anyone should have to. And I wanted to help him carry it. Silence. Even Celeste looked stunned. Vivian set down her wine glass very slowly. You think my grandson needs rescuing? No, Isabella shook her head. I think he needs someone who sees him as more than a name or a reputation. Someone who recognizes what it costs to be Damien Moretti every single day. I can't fix that, but I can stand beside him while he does. More silence. Then, impossibly, Vivian smiled. I like her. Vincent nearly choked on his wine. Mother. Oh, hush, Vincent. You wanted Celeste because her family has shipping routes. I want Damien happy. Isabella makes a better case than you did. Vivian's eyes glittered with something almost playful. Though I'll be watching, dear, closely. Disappoint him, and you'll answer to me. Understood, Isabella said, though her heart was trying to escape her chest through her throat. Dinner continued. Courses came and went. Fish, steak, vegetables arranged like art. Conversation stayed surface level, safer topics. Business deals, property investments, upcoming charity galas. But underneath it all, Isabella felt cross-currents of tension pulling in different directions. Vincent watched her like she was a problem to solve. Celeste glared with barely concealed hatred. Vivian observed everything with calculating interest. And Damien played the devoted boyfriend so convincingly that Isabella almost forgot it was performance. His hand on her back, his thumb stroking her wrist, the way he leaned close to murmur comments only she could hear, his breath warm against her ear. It felt real, which was exactly the problem. When dessert finally arrived, something involving chocolate and gold leaf, Celeste set down her fork with deliberate precision. "I want proof," she announced. Everyone looked at her. "Proof of what?" Damien asked. "That this relationship is real. Anyone can sit at a table and play pretend, but if you're truly in love, prove it." Celeste's smile turned sharp. "Kiss her, right now, like you did this morning, that supposedly authentic display of passion you used to humiliate me." The dining room went silent. Isabella's pulse jackhammered. Damien's expression didn't change, but she felt him tense beside her. "That's inappropriate," Vincent said. "Is it?" Celeste leaned forward. "They kissed in front of you earlier without hesitation. If it was real then, it should be real now. Unless it was just a performance. A convenient lie to avoid an arrangement Damien doesn't want to honor." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "You're being petty, Celeste." "I'm being honest." Celeste gestured between Damien and Isabella. "Kiss her. Prove I'm wrong." Damien turned to Isabella slowly. She saw the question in his eyes. "Can you do this?" Isabella's brain screamed at her to refuse, to call this out for the manipulation it was, to walk away from this insane situation before it consumed her completely. Instead, she leaned in and kissed him first. This time it was different, slower, softer, her hand coming up to cup his jaw, feeling stubble scratch against her palm. His fingers threading through her hair again, tilting her head for better access. The kiss deepened naturally, no performance, just heat and want and something that terrified her with how easily it unfolded. When they finally broke apart, Isabella's breathing was uneven. Damien looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. Surprise, maybe, or something darker. Across the table, Celeste's face had gone white. "Satisfied?" Isabella heard herself ask. Celeste stood so fast her chair tipped backward. "This isn't over." She left. Nobody tried to stop her. Vincent finished his wine in one swallow, set the glass down carefully. "You're making a mistake, Damien. This girl is going to be a liability. And when she becomes one, don't expect me to clean up the mess." He left too, which left Isabella, Damien, and Vivian sitting in silence. Finally, the older woman chuckled, low, genuinely amused. "Well, that was entertaining." She dabbed her mouth with a napkin. "Isabella, dear, walk with me a moment." It wasn't a request. Isabella followed Vivian out onto a terrace overlooking manicured gardens lit by soft landscape lighting. The rain had stopped, leaving everything smelling like wet earth and roses. Vivian lit a cigarette from a silver case, took a drag, exhaled slowly. "My grandson is lying about something," she said casually. "I don't know what, but I've raised him since he was 8 years old, and I know when he's hiding things." Isabella's stomach dropped. "Mrs. Moretti, Vivian, please." Another drag. "And relax, dear. I'm not accusing you. I'm stating a fact. Damien's been cornered into something he doesn't want, and you're part of his escape plan, whether you know it or not." The honesty surprised her. Isabella chose her next words carefully. "If that's what you think, why did you tell everyone you liked me?" "Because I do." Vivian's smile was sharp. "You're clever, brave, and you actually care about him. I saw it in your face when you described wanting to help him carry his burdens. That wasn't performance. That was real." She turned to face Isabella fully. "Whatever game my grandson is playing, you've become more than a pawn. That makes you dangerous to people who want to control him. And it makes you valuable to him, which means he'll protect you. For now." "For now?" "People in this family don't stay safe forever, Isabella. We survive by being useful, ruthless, or irreplaceable. Figure out which category you fit, and commit to it completely. Anything less, and you won't last." Vivian stubbed out her cigarette. "Now go find Damien. He's probably panicking somewhere, wondering if I'm threatening you. She was, just not the way Isabella expected. She found Damien in the library, pacing beside floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, jaw tight with tension. "What did she say?" he asked immediately. "That she knows you're lying, that I'm in danger, that I should figure out how to be useful or irreplaceable if I want to survive your family." Isabella crossed her arms. "So basically, a regular Tuesday in the Moretti household." Damien stopped pacing, ran both hands through his hair. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have dragged you into this. It was selfish and reckless and—" "It was," Isabella cut him off. "But I agreed anyway. So we're both idiots. And now we're stuck finishing what we started." She moved closer. "Your grandmother thinks I actually care about you. Is she right?" "I don't know. Do you?" "I shouldn't. You're my boss. This is fake. We barely know each other." Isabella looked at him directly. "But when Celeste demanded proof, and you looked at me like you were asking permission instead of just taking what you wanted, yeah, I started caring, which is probably the stupidest thing I've done yet." Damien closed the distance between them in 2 steps, cupped her face in both hands, and kissed her with an urgency that stole the air from her lungs. This wasn't for anyone's benefit. No audience, no performance, just them. When he pulled back, his thumb traced her lower lip gently. "Stay tonight," he whispered, "at my place. We need to coordinate our story, make sure the details align. And I don't want you going home alone after tonight. It's not safe." "Not safe from who?" "Celeste, my father. Anyone who thinks hurting you will hurt me." His jaw tightened. "You became a target the second I kissed you this morning, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe, even if that means keeping you close until this blows over." Isabella should have argued, should have demanded independence, boundaries, space to think. Instead, she nodded, because the truth was, she didn't want to go home alone either. Damien's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building in Tribeca that Isabella couldn't afford to walk past, let alone enter. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, art she recognized from museum visits, and a view of Manhattan that made the city look like a glittering circuit board. "Guest room's down the hall," Damien said, shrugging out of his jacket. "Bathroom's stocked. Help yourself to anything you need." "Thank you." But neither of them moved. They stood in the entrance staring at each other, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down like atmosphere before a storm. "I meant what I said earlier," Damien finally spoke. "About you being real. About needing that." He stepped closer. "You could have run. After the kiss, after dinner, after my grandmother's warning. But you stayed. Why?" "Honestly?" Isabella's heart hammered. "Because for the first time in 6 months, I feel like I'm part of something that matters. Even if it's fake. Even if it's dangerous. It's better than sitting in my apartment wondering why I'm not good enough for anyone to hire." "You're good enough." His voice dropped. "You're better than this world deserves." Then he kissed her again, slower this time, deeper, hands sliding around her waist to pull her flush against him. Isabella melted into it, fingers curling into his shirt, logic dissolving completely. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Damien pressed his forehead against hers. "This is a bad idea," he murmured. "Terrible," Isabella agreed. "We should stop." "Definitely." Neither of them moved. Isabella's phone buzzed in her purse, shattering the moment. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and her blood went cold. Unknown number, single text message. "Enjoy playing dress-up while it lasts, sweetheart. But remember, you're only valuable to him as long as you're useful, and usefulness expires. Watch your back." "See." She showed Damien. His expression went dark, dangerous. "Celeste. She's threatening me. She's testing you, seeing if fear makes you run." He took the phone, deleted the message. "Block the number, and from now on, you don't go anywhere alone. I'll assign security." "Damien, that's excessive." "It's necessary." His grip on her shoulders was firm. "You don't understand what you've stepped into. This family doesn't just have money and power. We have enemies, rivals, people who would kill to exploit any weakness, and you just became my weakness." His thumb brushed her cheek. "Which means protecting you is protecting myself, so please, let me." Isabella wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes told her arguing wouldn't change anything. She was in this now, All the way. Okay, she whispered. Damien exhaled slowly, relief flickering across his face. Then he kissed her forehead, surprisingly gentle, and stepped back. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we figure out how to survive the next 70 hours. Isabella went to the guest room in a daze, collapsed on the bed fully clothed, stared at the ceiling, and wondered what the hell she'd just agreed to. Check. Morning came with weak sunlight filtering through unfamiliar curtains and the smell of coffee drifting down the hallway. Isabella found Damien in the kitchen, already dressed in a fresh suit, scrolling through his phone with the focused intensity of someone managing multiple crises simultaneously. He glanced up when she entered. There's coffee, and breakfast if you want it. Thanks. She poured herself a cup, added cream, bought herself a moment to think. So, what's the plan? We sell the relationship publicly, social media appearances, the works. My PR team is already drafting statements. By end of day, every tabloid in New York will run stories about the mysterious woman who captured Damien Moretti's heart. He set his phone down. Are you ready for that? Does it matter? Not really. It's happening either way. His smile didn't reach his eyes. But it would help if you at least pretended to be okay with it. Isabella sipped her coffee. Thought about the text from Celeste, the warning from Vivian, the impossible situation she'd stumbled into by accepting a job that was supposed to save her career. I'm not okay with it, she said honestly, but I'll do it anyway, because backing out now would be worse. Honest as always, Damien moved closer. For what it's worth, I am sorry. You didn't sign up for any of this. No, I signed up to be your assistant. Turns out the job description was incomplete. He laughed, short, surprised. Severely incomplete. Isabella's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, expecting another threat. Instead, it was Maria, her cousin. Bella. What the hell? You're dating Damien Moretti? It's all over Twitter. Her stomach dropped. She looked at Damien. How fast does your PR team work? Very. He turned his phone to show her. Twitter was exploding. Instagram, TikTok, every social platform flooding with photos from last night, her and Damien arriving at his grandmother's estate, holding hands, looking every bit like a real couple. The headlines were exactly what he'd predicted. Damien Moretti off the market, mystery woman identified mafia. Air spotted with new girlfriend, ends engagement rumors. Who is Isabella Cruz? Everything we know about Moretti's new love. Isabella felt dizzy. This is insane. This is leverage. Damien pocketed his phone. The more public the relationship, the harder it is for my father and Celeste to claim it's fake. We're committed now. No going back. The intercom buzzed. Damien frowned, pressed the button. Yes? Sir? The doorman's voice crackled through. You have a visitor, Celeste Devereaux. She's demanding to see you. Damien's expression went cold. Tell her, let her up, Isabella interrupted. Both Damien and the doorman went silent. Are you sure? Damien asked quietly. No, but I'm tired of running from her threats. If she wants a confrontation, let's have it. Now, before this gets worse. Damien studied her face, then nodded. Send her up. They waited in tense silence. When the elevator doors opened, Celeste stormed out like a hurricane in designer heels. You've got some nerve, she spat at Isabella. Posting photos, leaking stories, playing victim to the press. I didn't leak anything, Isabella said calmly. Your problem is with Damien's PR team. Take it up with them. My problem is with you. Celeste moved closer, eyes blazing. You think you've won something? You think because he kissed you and called you his girlfriend that you actually matter? You're a prop, sweetheart. A temporary distraction from a marriage he can't avoid forever. Then why are you here? Isabella crossed her arms. If I'm so temporary and meaningless, why waste your time threatening me? Unless you're actually worried I might be permanent. Celeste's face flushed red. You're nobody, so you keep saying. Which tells me you're trying to convince yourself more than me. Isabella took a step forward. Here's what I think. I think you're scared. Because for the first time, Damien chose something for himself instead of following family orders. And that something was me. Not you. Me. And it's eating you alive. How dare you? Enough. Damien's voice cut through the argument like ice. Celeste, leave. Now. Before I call security and have you escorted out. You're making a mistake, Celeste hissed. Both of you. This won't end well. Then I guess we'll find out together. Isabella held her ground. But until then, stay away from me. Stay away from Damien, and stop sending threats to my phone like a coward. Celeste looked between them, jaw tight with fury. Then she turned and left without another word. The elevator doors closed. Silence returned. Isabella's hands were shaking. She hid them behind her back. Damien moved in front of her, gently took both her hands in his, and brought them to his lips. That, he said quietly, was the bravest thing I've seen in a long time. Or the stupidest. Often the same thing. He kissed her knuckles again. But you stood your ground. Didn't flinch. Didn't let her see you scared. His eyes searched hers. Why? Because I'm tired of being afraid. Of everything. Unemployment, failure, not being good enough. And I'll be damned if some entitled heiress makes me feel small just because she's used to getting what she wants. Isabella squeezed his hands. Besides, someone recently told me his grandmother respects strength. Figured that advice applies to everyone in your family. Damien smiled, genuinely this time. Then his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his smile vanished. It's my father. Answer it. Damien hit speaker. You've got 48 hours. Vincent's voice filled the penthouse. That's all that's left of your deadline. After that, the engagement announcement goes public with or without your cooperation. Enjoy your little rebellion while it lasts, son, because it ends soon. The line went dead. Isabella looked at Damien. 48 hours, she repeated. 48 hours, he confirmed. What happens when the deadline hits? Damien's jaw tightened. We find out exactly how far my father is willing to go to get what he wants, and whether I'm willing to go further to stop him. He pulled Isabella close, wrapped both arms around her, held on like she was the only solid thing in a world falling apart. And standing there in his penthouse, with the city sprawling below them and 48 hours until everything exploded, Isabella realized she wasn't pretending anymore. She'd fallen for the Mafia Boss. Completely, terrifyingly, irreversibly, and there was no going back now. 48 hours wasn't enough time to build a believable love story, but it was plenty of time for everything to fall apart. Isabella spent the next morning learning exactly how deeply Damien Moretti's world operated outside normal boundaries. His driver, Marcus, ex-military, built like a tank, arrived at 7 sharp to take her back to her apartment in Queens so she could pack essentials. Except Marcus didn't come alone. 2 additional security personnel followed in a second vehicle, scanning every street corner like they expected ambush. This is excessive, Isabella muttered as Marcus held the car door open. This is standard. His tone made it clear discussion wasn't happening. The drive took 30 minutes through morning traffic. Isabella stared out the window at normal people commuting to normal jobs, living normal lives that didn't include fake relationships with mafia bosses or death threats from jealous heiresses. She missed normal. Her apartment building looked especially run down next to the sleek Mercedes. Peeling paint on the facade, cracked concrete steps, a front door that stuck unless you kicked it just right. Isabella had never been embarrassed by where she lived. She'd earned this place through hard work and determination. But watching Marcus and his team assess it with professional skepticism made her stomach twist. Wait here, Marcus said as they climbed the stairs. He went in first, hand resting near his concealed weapon, clearing each room like he expected assassins hiding behind her second-hand couch. All clear, he announced after checking the closets, bathroom, and fire escape. Pack what you need. We leave in 15 minutes. Isabella grabbed a duffel bag and started throwing clothes inside. Toiletries from the bathroom, laptop, phone charger. The framed photo of her mother she kept on the nightstand, younger than Isabella was now, smiling in a way that made grief punch through Isabella's chest even 7 years later. She was zipping the bag when her phone rang. Maria. Again. Isabella answered. Hey, Mom, don't hey me. Her cousin's voice came through sharp and worried. Bella, what the hell is going on? I've been calling all morning. You're all over the news. Photographers are camped outside your building. Yes, I checked. And nobody can get through to you. Are you okay? Is this real? Are you actually dating Damien Moretti, or is something else happening? Isabella sank onto the edge of the bed. It's complicated. Complicated how? Because from where I'm sitting, you went from unemployed to dating Manhattan's most dangerous man in about 12 seconds. That's not complicated. That's insane. I know. Then explain it to me, please, because I'm worried about you. Isabella wanted to tell her everything. The fake relationship, the forced marriage, the way she'd somehow developed real feelings for a man she barely knew. But the NDA covered personal relationships, and Damien's warning about enemies exploiting weakness echoed in her head. I can't, Isabella said quietly. Not yet. But I'm safe. I promise. Maria was silent for a long moment. You're lying to me. I'm protecting you. From what? From knowing things that could make you a target? Isabella gripped the phone tighter. Maria, please, trust me. I'll tell you everything when I can, but right now, the less you know, the safer you are. Another silence. Then, fine. But Bella, if you need help, if anything goes wrong, you call me immediately. I don't care who he is or what kind of power he has. Your family, that comes first. I will. I love you. Love you too. Be careful. The call ended. Isabella sat there, staring at the phone, feeling the weight of every lie she'd told in the past 24 hours crushing down on her shoulders. Marcus knocked on the doorframe. Time's up. She grabbed her bag and left her apartment without looking back. The drive to Moretti Holdings felt longer than it should have. Isabella's phone kept buzzing with notifications. Journalists requesting interviews, old classmates suddenly interested in reconnecting, random messages from people she barely remembered asking if the rumors were true. She turned it off completely. Smart, Marcus said, watching her in the rearview mirror. Social media is a weapon now. Everything you post can be used against you. Thanks for the pep talk. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. Mr. Moretti's waiting in his office. He asked me to bring you directly upstairs. When they arrived, Patricia was conspicuously absent. Instead, a younger woman Isabella didn't recognize sat at the reception desk. Early 30s, sharp suit, expression carefully neutral. Ms. Cruz, Mr. Moretti's expecting you. She gestured toward the office doors without further explanation. Isabella found Damien standing at the windows, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and dangerous. I don't care what the board thinks. The acquisition moves forward as planned. If they have concerns, they can schedule a meeting. He paused, listening. No. The answer is no. And if this comes up again, start looking for new board members. He ended the call and turned. Isabella, good. We need to talk. Something in his tone made her stomach clench. What happened? My father made a move. Damien tossed his phone onto the desk. He leaked information to 3 of our biggest investors suggesting I'm unstable, that I'm making reckless personal decisions that could compromise company interests. 2 of them called emergency meetings. One's threatening to pull funding from our downtown development project. Because of me. Because of us. He moved closer. He's weaponizing the relationship, using it to undermine my credibility with business partners who already think I'm too young and too aggressive. Isabella set her bag down carefully. What do you need me to do? Appear at a press conference this afternoon. With me. We're going public with a prepared statement about the relationship. Show a united front. Make it clear this isn't a distraction or a liability. It's real, stable, and none of their business. A press conference. Isabella's mouth went dry. In front of cameras. Journalists. Everyone. Yes. Damien, I can't. You can. He gripped her shoulders gently. I know this is terrifying, but if we don't control the narrative, my father will, and his version destroys both of us. Isabella thought about Vincent Moretti's cold eyes, Celeste's threats, the 48-hour deadline ticking down like a bomb. Okay, she heard herself say. What do I wear? Relief flickered across Damien's face. My stylist is already on her way. She'll handle everything. The stylist, Vanessa, impossibly chic, terrifyingly efficient, arrived 30 minutes later with enough clothing options to stock a boutique. She transformed Damien's conference room into a makeshift dressing area and subjected Isabella to the kind of scrutiny usually reserved for museum artifacts. Classic, elegant, nothing too flashy. Vanessa circled Isabella like a predator. We want powerful but approachable, confident but not threatening. You're the woman who won Damien Moretti's heart. Act like you deserve him. I don't deserve him, Isabella muttered. Fake it anyway. Vanessa pulled a navy sheath dress from the rack. Try this. An hour later, Isabella barely recognized herself in the mirror. The dress fit perfectly, tailored to emphasize curves without being provocative. Vanessa had styled her hair in soft waves, applied makeup that looked natural but polished, chosen jewelry that whispered money without screaming it. Better, Vanessa announced. Now remember, shoulders back, chin up, smile like you know something they don't. You're not just Damien's girlfriend. You're a woman who walked into the lion's den and came out holding the leash. That's terrifying imagery. It's accurate. Vanessa snapped her kit closed. Good luck. The press conference was scheduled for 3 o'clock in the building's main lobby, a massive space with marble floors and enough natural light to make everyone look washed out. By 2:30, journalists had packed the area, cameras set up in rows, microphones bristling like weapons. Isabella stood backstage with Damien, heart slamming against her ribs. I can't do this, she whispered. You already are. He adjusted his tie, checked his watch. Remember, we're in love. Madly, completely, unshakably. You're here because you chose me, not because anyone forced you, and no matter what they ask, we present a united front. What if I mess up? You won't. He turned to face her fully. But if you do, I'll handle it. That's what partners do. The word partners shouldn't have hit as hard as it did. Before Isabella could respond, someone called Damien's name from the lobby. That's our cue. He took her hand, warm, solid, grounding. Ready? No. Good. Neither am I. They walked out together. The camera flashes started immediately, blinding, disorienting, turning the lobby into a lightning storm. Isabella's instinct was to flinch, pull back, hide. Instead, she squeezed Damien's hand and kept walking. They reached the podium. Damien stepped up to the microphones. Isabella stood beside him, exactly where Vanessa had positioned her during rehearsal. Thank you all for coming. Damien's voice carried that same calm authority he used to close business deals. I know there's been speculation about my personal life, so I want to address it directly. Yes, I'm in a relationship with Isabella Cruz. We've been together several months and kept it private until circumstances forced it public. I'm here today to make one thing clear. This relationship is real, serious, and not up for debate. He glanced at Isabella. She smiled back, trying to look natural despite the cameras documenting every micro-expression. Questions erupted from the crowd. Mr. Moretti, how did you meet? Is it true your father arranged an engagement with Celeste Devereaux? Ms. Cruz, what do you say to critics who claim you're using Damien for money? That last one hit like a slap. Isabella stepped closer to the microphones before she could second-guess herself. I'd say they don't know anything about me, she said, voice steadier than expected. I'm not here for money or status or fame. I'm here because I fell in love with someone who treats me like an equal, respects my intelligence, and makes me want to be better. If that's using him, then I don't understand the definition of the word. More flashes. More questions shouted over each other. Damien's hand found the small of her back. One more question. Make it good. A woman in the front row stood. Mr. Moretti, your father has publicly stated he doesn't approve of this relationship. How do you respond? Damien's expression went cold. My father doesn't control my personal life. He never has, and he never will. Isabella is my choice, my decision, and anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. The thread underneath those words was impossible to miss. He wrapped up the press conference with practiced efficiency, thanked the journalists, and guided Isabella backstage before anyone could chase them with follow-up questions. The moment they were out of camera range, Isabella's knees buckled. Damien caught her, held her upright. You did amazing. I think I'm going to throw up. That's normal. He led her to a chair, pressed a bottle of water into her hands. The worst part is over. Isabella laughed, sharp, slightly hysterical. The worst part? Damien, we just lied to every major news outlet in New York. Your father's probably watching that footage right now, planning how to destroy us. Celeste is definitely plotting my murder. And we still have, she checked her phone, 36 hours until your deadline. 36 hours. Damien crouched in front of her chair, hands on her knees. Then it's over. My father's deadline expires, the engagement announcement becomes irrelevant, and we figure out where to go from here. Where do we go from here? He looked at her for a long moment. I don't know, but I want to find out. Something in his voice made Isabella's chest ache. Before she could respond, Marcus appeared in the doorway. Sir, we have a situation. Damien stood immediately. What kind of situation? Someone leaked Ms. Cruz's home address. It's all over social media. There's already a crowd gathering outside her building. Journalists, photographers, people hoping to get footage. Isabella felt the blood drain from her face. My neighbors are about to have their lives turned into a circus, Marcus finished grimly. We need to make a statement or move Ms. Cruz's belongings to secure storage. Preferably both. Damien's jaw tightened. Who leaked it? Unknown, but the original post came from an anonymous account created this morning. Celeste, Isabella whispered. Probably. Damien pulled out his phone, started typing rapidly. Marcus, coordinate with building security. I want Isabella's apartment cleared and everything moved to my place within 2 hours. Hire movers if you need to, and get a legal team on the leak. I want that information scrubbed from every platform. Already on it. Marcus disappeared. Isabella sat frozen. This is real. This is actually happening. Yes. Damien pocketed his phone. Which is why you're staying with me until it's safe. Not as a suggestion, as a requirement. You can't just, I can and I am. His voice went hard. Isabella, you're a target now. Because of me, because of decisions I made, you're in danger. And I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe, even if that means making choices you don't like. That's controlling. That's realistic. He moved closer. You want autonomy? Fine. But understand that autonomy in this world means risk. Every time you leave my sight, you're vulnerable. Every friend you talk to becomes a potential leak. Every place you go becomes somewhere enemies can find you. So yes, I'm being controlling, because the alternative is attending your funeral. The words hit like ice water. Isabella stared at him. You really think it's that serious? I think my father has spent 30 years building an empire through violence and intimidation. I think Celeste grew up in a family just as ruthless, and I think both of them see you as the obstacle between them and what they want. Damien's expression softened slightly. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. This isn't a game anymore. It never was. Isabella's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number, another text. Cute press conference. But speeches don't change facts. You're nobody, and nobodies don't survive in our world. TikTok. See. She showed Damien. His face went dark. That's it. I'm done playing nice. What does that mean? It means Celeste wants a war. She's about to get one. He pulled out his phone again, dialed. It's me. I need everything you can find on Celeste Devereaux. Bank accounts, shell companies, properties, communications, everything. And I need it yesterday. He paused, listening. I don't care if it's legal. Just get it done. He hung up. Isabella stood slowly. Damien, what are you planning? What I should have done the moment she threatened you. I'm going to remind her exactly who she's dealing with. His eyes met hers. And if that means burning bridges with her family, destroying alliances my father spent years building, then so be it. You're worth more than all of it. The declaration should have felt romantic. Instead, it felt terrifying. Because Isabella was starting to realize just how far Damien would go to protect her, and what that protection might cost both of them. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of phone calls, meetings, and crisis management. Damien's legal team worked to scrub Isabella's address from the internet, while his PR team drafted statements about privacy violations. Marcus coordinated the move from her apartment with military precision. Isabella sat in Damien's office, watching Manhattan through the windows, feeling completely disconnected from the life she'd had 72 hours ago. Her phone rang. Maria. She almost didn't answer, but guilt won out. Hey. Bella. Maria's voice was tight. I just watched your press conference. And you looked terrified, like someone was holding a gun to your head off screen. Silence. Tell me the truth. Are you okay? Are you safe? Because if you're not, I'm coming to get you right now and we're figuring this out together. Isabella's throat closed. I'm safe. That's not what I asked. It's the best answer I can give you. Maria exhaled shakily. I hate this. I hate that you're caught up in something you can't talk about. I hate that I can't help. You are helping just by caring. Isabella blinked back tears. I love you, and I promise when this is over, I'll explain everything. When this is over, Maria repeated quietly. Bella, what if it doesn't end? What if this is your life now? The question hung between them. Then I guess I'll adapt, Isabella said finally, like I always do. After they hung up, Isabella sat in silence for a long time. What if Maria was right? What if there was no going back to normal? What if she'd traded her ordinary life for something that would eventually consume her completely? The office door opened. Damien entered, jacket off, tie loosened, looking exhausted in a way that made him seem younger. It's done, he said. Your apartment's cleared. Everything's at my place. Marcus set up additional security protocols. And my investigator just sent over preliminary findings on Celeste. Already? Money opens doors. He dropped into the chair beside her. She's been bleeding cash for months. Bad investments, shopping addiction, gambling debts. She's keeping quiet. The Devereaux family doesn't know yet, but she's close to bankrupt. Isabella processed that. So the marriage wasn't just about territory. It was about saving her financially. My family's money would have cleared her debts, restored her status, given her access to resources she's about to lose. Damien leaned back. Which means she has way more to lose than I thought. And desperate people make dangerous choices. What do? We use it, leverage her desperation to get her to back off. He looked at Isabella. I'm meeting with her tomorrow, private, just the two of us. I'm going to make it very clear that continuing this campaign against you will result in her secrets becoming public knowledge. Alarm bells went off in Isabella's head. That sounds like blackmail. It is blackmail. No apology. Welcome to my world. Damien, Isabella. He turned to face her fully. I know this isn't how you want things handled. I know it's morally gray at best. But this is how my family operates. Leverage, pressure, consequences. If I don't play by those rules, we lose. And losing means you get hurt. I won't allow that. Even if it means becoming someone you hate? The question stopped him cold. For a moment, vulnerability flickered across his face. I became that person a long time ago. The question isn't whether I hate myself. It's whether you can live with who I am. Isabella stood, moved to where he sat, cupped his face in both hands. I can live with it, she said quietly. But I need you to promise me something. Don't lose yourself completely trying to protect me. Don't become the monster everyone already thinks you are just because it's easier than fighting to be something else. Damien closed his eyes. What if I'm already the monster? Then I'll remind you you're also a man. One who laughed at his grandmother's dinner table. One who held me like I mattered when he could have treated me like a pawn. One who's trying so hard to be something other than what his father wants that he's willing to burn everything down. She kissed his forehead gently. You're not just one thing, Damien. Neither of us are. When he opened his eyes, they were glassy. He pulled her into his lap, buried his face in her shoulder, and held on like she was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. They stayed like that until the city outside turned gold with sunset. Then Damien's phone shattered the moment with a harsh ringtone. He answered without looking at the screen. What? Isabella couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she felt Damien go rigid. When? His voice dropped to something lethal. Where is she now? Pause. Lock down the building. Nobody in or out without my explicit approval. I'm on my way. He stood, setting Isabella on her feet. What happened? Someone tried to access my grandmother's estate, armed, got past the first gate before security stopped them. His jaw was tight enough to crack teeth. They're questioning him now, but initial reports suggest he was hired, professional. Hired by who? I have 3 guesses, and all of them lead back to my father or Celeste. He grabbed his jacket. You're coming with me. I'm not leaving you here alone. They took the private elevator to the parking garage, Marcus and his team already waiting with engines running. The drive to the Hamptons estate felt like it took hours. Isabella's mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. If someone was willing to attack Vivian Moretti, the matriarch, the real power behind the empire, then nobody was safe, including her. The estate was lit up like a fortress when they arrived. Extra security patrolled the perimeter, armed and alert. Police cruisers blocked the main gate, lights flashing. Damien bypassed all of it with a single phone call. They found Vivian in her private sitting room, smoking a cigarette, looking completely unbothered by the chaos outside. "Grandmother," Damien crossed to her immediately. "Are you hurt?" "Do I look hurt?" She waved her cigarette dismissively. "The fool barely made it past the first checkpoint before my security tackled him. Dramatic, but ultimately ineffective. Who sent him? That's what I intend to find out." Vivian's eyes slid to Isabella. "Hello, dear. I see you survived your first press conference." "Barely," Isabella admitted. "Honesty, still your best quality." Vivian stubbed out her cigarette. "Sit, both of you. We need to discuss what happens next." They sat. Vivian leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. "Someone in this family wants you gone, Damien, or at the very least wants to send a message. Attacking me is a declaration of war, which means we're past the point of negotiation." "My father," Damien said flatly. "Possibly, though even Vincent wouldn't be stupid enough to authorize an assault on my home." Her gaze sharpened. "Unless he's more desperate than I thought. Tell me, how much damage would your little rebellion cause to his business interests?" "Substantial. The Devereaux Alliance would have opened shipping routes, expanded territory, increased revenue by 40%. Without it, he's stuck with current resources and limited growth potential." "So he has motive." Vivian nodded slowly. "What about Celeste? Bankrupt within 6 months unless she marries money. She's been hiding debt from her family, gambling to try to recover losses, failing." Damien's voice was ice. "I was her way out. Now I'm the obstacle." "Then she has motive too." Vivian stood, moved to the window. "Here's what we know. Someone escalated from threats to action. Someone is willing to risk everything, including attacking me, to force your hand. And we have," she glanced at the antique clock on the mantel, "approximately 24 hours until Vincent's deadline expires." Isabella's stomach dropped. "What happens when it expires?" "Either Damien capitulates and agrees to the marriage, or Vincent moves forward with consequences he's been threatening for weeks." Vivian turned. "War within the family, split loyalties, business partners choosing sides, everything we've built fracturing along fault lines we can't control." "Unless we strike first," Damien said quietly. "Unless we strike first," Vivian agreed, "which is why I'm authorizing you to do whatever is necessary to end this. Find out who hired that man, trace it back to the source, and when you do, eliminate the threat permanently." The word eliminate hung in the air like poison. Isabella felt something cold settle in her chest. This was the reality Damien had tried to warn her about. The world where problems didn't get solved through conversation or compromise. They got eliminated. "I'll handle it," Damien said. "See that you do." Vivian's expression softened slightly. "And Damien, if it comes down to family or this girl, choose carefully, because once you make that choice, there's no going back." "I already made it." Damien stood, took Isabella's hand. "She comes first. Always." Vivian studied them both for a long moment. Then she smiled, small, sad, knowing. "Then you're braver than I thought. Or more foolish. Time will tell which." She waved them toward the door. "Go. Do what needs to be done, and be careful. The next 24 hours will determine everything." They left. The drive back to Manhattan was silent. Isabella stared out the window, processing everything she'd just heard. Eliminate, strike first, choose carefully. This wasn't romance anymore. This was survival. When they reached Damien's penthouse, he went immediately to his office and closed the door. Isabella heard his voice through the walls, low, sharp, issuing orders to people whose names she didn't know for purposes she couldn't guess. She found whiskey in the kitchen, poured herself a glass, drank it too fast, then poured another. By the time Damien emerged an hour later, Isabella was on her third drink and feeling pleasantly numb. "You're drunk," he observed. "Getting there." She raised her glass. "Want to join me? We can toast to whatever the hell we're doing with our lives." Damien crossed to her slowly, took the glass from her hand, set it aside. "Isabella, don't!" She held up one hand. "Don't give me the speech about how this is for my protection, or how I need to trust you, or how everything will be fine. Because I just watched your grandmother authorize you to eliminate whoever's threatening us, and I'm pretty sure that's a euphemism for murder. It is. His honesty startled her. So that's what happens now. Someone tries to hurt you and you kill them? If necessary, yes. No apology, no hesitation. That's how this world works. That's how my family stays in power. And if you can't handle that reality, tell me now, because it's only going to get worse from here. Isabella looked at him, really looked at him. The exhaustion in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the weight of everything he carried pressing down until she wondered how he stayed upright. I don't know if I can handle it, she admitted, but I'm still here. That has to count for something. It counts for everything. He pulled her close, wrapped both arms around her. I know I'm asking too much. I know this isn't fair. But I need you to hold on just a little longer, 24 hours. After that, the deadline expires and we figure out what comes next. Isabella buried her face in his chest, breathing in cedar and smoke and something uniquely him. What if what comes next is worse? Then we face it together. His phone buzzed, then again, then continuously until he finally pulled it out, checked the screen, and went completely still. What? Isabella asked. Damien showed her. Text messages, dozens of them, all from different numbers, all containing the same image. A photograph of Isabella taken this morning leaving her apartment building. But someone had drawn a red X over her face, and written beneath it, "Time's up." That's not Celeste, Isabella whispered. No. Damien's voice was dead calm. That's someone with resources, someone organized, someone who's been watching you for longer than we realized. Your father. Probably. Or someone working for him. He pulled up his contacts, dialed. It's me. I need a trace on... He rattled off the phone numbers. Every single one. I don't care how long it takes. Find out who sent these messages and where they're operating from. He ended the call. Then he looked at Isabella with something that might have been fear. Pack a bag. Real clothes this time. Warm layers. We're leaving the city. What? Where? Somewhere my father can't reach us. Somewhere off the grid until I can figure out who's behind this and how to stop them. He was already moving toward the bedroom. We leave in 30 minutes. Tell no one where we're going. Not Maria, not friends, no one. Understood? Isabella followed him. Damien, this is insane. This is necessary. He spun to face her. Someone just sent a death threat to 40 different numbers simultaneously. That's not impulse. That's coordination, planning, which means whoever's coming for you has resources I can't fight in the middle of Manhattan surrounded by civilians. So we run. So we regroup. He gripped her shoulders. Isabella, I can't protect you here. Too many variables, too many access points, too many people who want to hurt me by hurting you. But there's a place upstate, secure, isolated, off the books. We go there, I lock it down, and we wait until my team identifies the threat. And then what? Then I end it. The promise in those 3 words was absolute. One way or another, this ends in 24 hours, but I need you safe first, please. Isabella looked at him, at the desperation bleeding through his control, and realized she'd passed some invisible point of no return. She was in this completely. For better or worse? Probably worse. Okay, she heard herself say. 30 minutes. They packed in silence. Isabella threw clothes into the same duffel bag she'd used that morning, added the photo of her mother, grabbed her laptop out of habit, even though she doubted they'd have internet where they were going. Damien emerged from his room with a black tactical bag that looked military-grade, phone pressed to his ear, issuing rapid-fire instructions to Marcus about routes and timing and contingency plans. When they left the penthouse, they didn't take the main elevator. Instead, Damien led her through a hidden door in his office that opened onto a service stairwell Isabella hadn't known existed. Where does this go? She whispered. Private garage, sub-level 3. Car's already waiting. He took her hand, guided her down flights of concrete stairs lit by emergency lighting. They emerged in a garage she'd never seen, smaller than the main one, holding only 3 vehicles. Marcus stood beside a black SUV with tinted windows and plates she didn't recognize. Route's clear, Marcus said. I'll follow at a distance. Comms stay live the entire drive. Damien nodded, opened the passenger door for Isabella. She slid inside. The interior smelled like leather and gun oil. Damien got behind the wheel, started the engine, and drove them out through an exit that led to a side street Isabella didn't recognize. They left Manhattan at 11 p.m., headlights cutting through darkness, the city shrinking in the rearview mirror until it disappeared completely. Isabella watched it go and wondered if she'd ever see it again. "Where are we going?" she asked quietly. "Upstate, near the Canadian border. The property belonged to my grandfather. He used it as a safe house during territorial disputes in the 80s. Off the grid, no paper trail, stocked with everything we need." Damien's hands were tight on the wheel. "We'll be safe there." Safe from what? From whoever sent those messages. From my father's deadline. From Celeste's desperation. He glanced at her. From everything except each other. The words settled between them like a challenge. Because that was the real danger, wasn't it? Not the threats or the violence or the family politics. The danger was how much Isabella had started to need him. How completely he'd infiltrated every corner of her life in less than 48 hours. How she was pretty sure she was falling in love with a man who solved problems by eliminating them. They drove north for 3 hours. The highway gave way to back roads. Back roads gave way to dirt paths. Civilization faded until there was nothing but forest and darkness and the occasional glimpse of stars through the trees. Finally, Damien turned onto a narrow driveway marked only by a reflector pole. The house materialized from the shadows. 2 stories, stone and timber, windows dark, isolated enough that screaming wouldn't reach anyone. Isabella's pulse kicked up. Damien parked, killed the engine. "Stay here. I'm checking the perimeter first." He disappeared into the darkness. Isabella sat alone in the SUV, surrounded by trees and silence, and the growing certainty that she'd made a catastrophic mistake trusting him. What did she actually know about Damien Moretti? That he was powerful, connected, dangerous, capable of violence, that he'd kissed her to escape an arranged marriage and somehow convinced her to play along, that he'd isolated her from friends, family, her entire life in less than 72 hours. That she was now alone with him in the middle of nowhere with no phone service and no way to call for help. Her hand moved to the door handle. Then Damien reappeared, knocked on the window, and smiled. "All clear. Come on." Isabella's breath released in a rush. She was being paranoid. Damien wasn't dangerous to her. He was dangerous for her. Big difference. She hoped. Inside, the house was surprisingly modern despite its rustic exterior. Hardwood floors, stone fireplace, furniture that looked comfortable without being luxurious. Everything clean and maintained despite clearly being empty for months. "There's a generator for power," Damien said, flipping switches until lights hummed to life. Pantries stocked with non-perishables, water from a well. Basically, everything we need to stay off the grid for a week if necessary. "A week?" Isabella set her bag down. "You said 24 hours. "I said the deadline expires in 24 hours. That doesn't mean the threat disappears." He moved to the windows, checked locks, drew curtains. "We stay here until I'm certain it's safe to go back. Could be 2 days. Could be longer." "Damien!" Isabella crossed her arms. "I can't just disappear for a week. I have a job." "Oh wait, that's you. I have friends who I'm not allowed to contact. I have a life that you've completely taken over in 72 hours. What exactly am I supposed to do while we hide here?" "Survive." He turned to face her. "That's all that matters right now, survival." "That's not a life, that's just existing. It's temporary." "Is it?" Isabella's voice rose. "Because from where I'm standing, this looks like my new normal. Hiding from threats, depending on you completely, losing everything that made me me just to stay safe in your world." Damien closed the distance between them. "What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry?" "I am. That I wish things were different?" "I do. But we're here now in this situation, and the only way through it is together. So yes, you've lost autonomy. Yes, your life has been turned upside down. And yes, it's my fault. But I'm doing everything in my power to make sure you survive long enough to hate me for it later." "I don't hate you." The admission came out broken. "That's the problem. I should hate you, but I don't. And I'm terrified that means I'm losing myself completely." Damien cupped her face in both hands. "Then hold on to me. Use me as your anchor. And when this is over, when you're safe and the threats are gone, if you want to walk away, I won't stop you. But right now, tonight, I need you to trust me one more time. Can you do that? Isabella looked into his eyes, dark, desperate, raw with something that looked almost like love, and made the worst decision of her life. Yes. He kissed her. And this time there was no audience, no performance, no lies. Just them. Isabella kissed Damien like she was drowning and he was air. His hands slid into her hair, tilting her head back, deepening the kiss until rational thought dissolved completely. She grabbed fistfuls of his shirt, pulling him closer, needing the solid reality of him to anchor her against the chaos spinning through her head. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damien rested his forehead against hers. "We should stop," he murmured. "Probably." Neither of them moved. His thumb traced her jawline, a gesture so tender it hurt. "Isabella, if we do this, if we cross this line, there's no pretending anymore. No going back to the fake relationship story. It becomes real, completely, and I need to know you understand that." "I understand." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "I also understand that we might both be dead in 24 hours. So maybe pretending isn't the problem anymore. Maybe the problem is wasting time on fear when we could be doing literally anything else." Something dark and hungry flashed in his eyes. "Anything else?" "Anything else." He kissed her again, harder this time, more demanding, and Isabella surrendered to it completely. Let him back her against the wall. Let his hands map every curve through her clothes. Let herself forget about death threats and family wars and impossible situations. For one night, she just wanted to feel alive. They barely made it upstairs. Clothes left a trail across hardwood floors. Damien kicked the bedroom door closed behind them, lifted Isabella like she weighed nothing, and dropped her onto the bed with enough force to make her gasp. What followed erased every rational thought from her head, his mouth on her skin, her nails dragging down his back, the whispered confessions between ragged breaths, the way he looked at her like she was the only real thing in his entire manufactured world. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets, sweat cooling on skin, hearts still racing. Isabella traced the tattoo on Damien's ribs, some kind of family crest she'd noticed earlier but hadn't examined closely. What does this mean? Legacy, loyalty, blood. His voice was rough. My father had it done when I turned 18, said it would remind me who I belonged to. Do you belong to him? I used to think so. That everything I was existed because he built the empire that made it possible. Damien turned his head to look at her. But then you walked into my office and looked at me like I was just a person, not a legacy, not a weapon, just Damien. And I realized I didn't want to belong to anyone except myself. And now? Now I'm starting to think I might belong to you. He pulled her closer, which is either the smartest or stupidest realization I've ever had. Isabella wanted to ask which one he thought it was. Instead, she kissed him again and let the question dissolve into the darkness. She fell asleep wrapped in his arms, feeling safer than she had any right to feel given the circumstances, which is why waking up alone 3 hours later sent immediate panic through her system. The bed beside her was empty, sheets cold, no sound from the bathroom, no light under the door. Isabella sat up, heart pounding. Damien? No answer. She grabbed one of his shirts from the floor, pulled it on, and padded barefoot into the hallway. The house was dark except for a faint glow coming from downstairs. She found Damien in the kitchen, standing at the window with his phone pressed to his ear, voice low and dangerous. I don't care what it costs. I want confirmation by morning. Pause. If you can't deliver, find someone who can. This ends now. He hung up, scrubbed both hands over his face. Damien? Isabella approached slowly. What's wrong? He turned, and the expression on his face made her stop cold. Something had changed. The careful control he always maintained had cracked, revealing something raw and violent underneath. My investigator traced the phone numbers, he said flatly. The ones that sent your photo with the X over your face. And they were all burner phones purchased in the same location, Midtown Manhattan, 3 days ago. His jaw tightened. Before I ever kissed you in my office. Before we announced the relationship. Before any of this became public. Isabella's stomach dropped. That's not possible. It's not only possible. It's fact. Damien moved closer, eyes searching her face like he was looking for something specific. Which means whoever sent those threats knew about you before the fake relationship existed, before you became a target, before there was any reason for them to care about Isabella Cruz at all. Ice flooded her veins. What are you saying? I'm saying someone's been watching you longer than we realized, or... He stopped, jaw working. Or this entire situation was orchestrated from the beginning. That's insane. Nobody knew I'd accept your job offer. Nobody knew you'd kiss me to escape your father's arrangement. Didn't they? Damien pulled out his phone, showed her the screen. Patricia recommended you for the executive assistant position. She selected your resume from hundreds of applications. She scheduled your interview for the exact morning my father planned to ambush me with Celeste. So? That's coincidence. Patricia's worked for me 8 years. She's never acted without direct orders, never made independent decisions about hiring, never suggested candidates. His voice dropped. So why did she recommend you specifically? Isabella's mouth went dry. You think Patricia's working for someone? I think Patricia's worked for my father the entire time. I think he planted her in my organization years ago to report back, and I think she chose you because someone told her to. Why would anyone want me in that office? That's the question I've been trying to answer for 3 hours. Damien paced to the window, stared out at darkness. You're nobody, Isabella. No offense, but you said it yourself. Unemployed for 6 months, no connections, no leverage. The perfect person to manipulate into a situation you don't understand. I'm not being manipulated, aren't you? He spun to face her. Think about it. You accept a job with me. Within 2 hours, you're kissing me in front of my father. By that night, you're at family dinner playing my girlfriend. 24 hours later, you're living in my penthouse. 72 hours later, you're isolated in the middle of nowhere with no contact to the outside world. Every step pushing you deeper into my life. Every decision made under pressure with no time to think. Isabella backed up a step. You're saying this was planned, that someone wanted us together. I'm saying it's too convenient, too perfect, too... He stopped himself, jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. I don't know what I'm saying, but something's wrong. I can feel it. Then we leave. Go back to the city. Figure this out with your team. We can't. Damien's laugh was bitter. Because He checked his watch. 14 hours, my father's deadline expires. And when it does, either I agree to marry Celeste or he moves forward with whatever consequences he's been threatening. Which means we're trapped here until the clock runs out regardless of what else is happening. Isabella wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly freezing despite the shirt. So what do? We wait. He moved to the table, dropped into a chair like the weight of everything was finally crushing him. We wait until morning, then I make calls, get answers, and figure out who's been playing us this entire time. And what about me? Am I supposed to just sit here wondering if I'm a pawn in someone's game? You are a pawn. The words came out flat, brutal. We both are. The question is whose game we're playing. Isabella stared at him. I thought you said I mattered, that I was worth more than business alliances and family politics. You are. But that doesn't change the fact that someone used you to get to me. And until I know who and why, I can't trust anything about this situation. Including me. Silence. The hesitation was answer enough. Something inside Isabella's chest cracked clean through. I see. She turned toward the stairs. I'll be upstairs. Let me know when you decide whether I'm a person or a conspiracy. Isabella, don't. She didn't look back. Whatever you're about to say, just don't. She made it to the bedroom before the tears came. Collapsed on the bed they'd shared hours ago and let everything she'd been holding back pour out. Fear, anger, betrayal, the crushing realization that she'd fallen for someone who might never trust her completely. Because how could he? She was nobody. That's what made her useful. Isabella cried until she had nothing left. Then lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so fast. She must have fallen asleep eventually because the next thing she knew, gray dawn light was filtering through the windows and someone was knocking urgently on the bedroom door. Isabella! Damien's voice tight with tension. Get dressed. We have a problem. She sat up, wiped her face, pulled on jeans and a sweater with shaking hands. When she opened the door, Damien looked like he hadn't slept at all. Dark circles under his eyes, jaw shadowed with stubble, shirt wrinkled. What kind of problem? The kind where Marcus just called to tell me someone leaked our location. He was already moving down the hallway. We need to leave. Now. How is that possible? You said this place was off the grid. It was. Which means either someone followed us or... He stopped at the top of the stairs, turned to face her. Or someone told them where to find us. The implication hung between them like smoke. I didn't tell anyone, Isabella said quietly. I don't even know where we are. I know, but his eyes said something different. Pack. 5 minutes. We're gone. They threw belongings into bags with the efficiency of people who'd done this before, or people running on pure adrenaline and fear. Isabella was zipping her duffel when she heard the first vehicle pull up outside. Damien appeared in the doorway, gun in hand. She stared at the weapon. Where did that come from? My bag. I always travel prepared. He moved to the window, looked out carefully. Black SUV? 2 more coming up the drive. Professional. This isn't random. Your father? Maybe. Or someone else who wants us both in one convenient location. He grabbed her arm. Back door, through the kitchen. Move. They made it halfway down the stairs before the front door exploded inward. Not kicked in, blown. The concussion knocked Isabella sideways into the wall. Her ears rang. Smoke filled the entryway. Damien hauled her upright, shoved her toward the kitchen. Go! She ran. Behind her, voices shouted commands. Heavy boots on hardwood. The sound of furniture overturning. They burst through the kitchen door into cold morning air and stopped dead. 3 men in tactical gear blocked the path to Damien's SUV, weapons drawn, faces covered. Damien raised his gun. Back inside. Now! Isabella scrambled backward. They made it to the mudroom before one of the men spoke. Mr. Moretti, Miss Cruz, nobody needs to get hurt today. Just come with us quietly. Who sent you? Damien's voice was deadly calm despite the chaos. Does it matter? Yes. The man's radio crackled. Another voice came through, female, cold. Bring them both. Alive. The client wants to talk before making final decisions. Isabella's blood went to ice. She knew that voice. Damien must have recognized it too because his expression went from controlled to murderous in half a second. Celeste. Clever boy. The voice came clearer now, like she was standing just outside. Though not clever enough. Did you really think I'd just accept defeat? Walk away because you fell in love with some random girl? What do you want? What I've always wanted. The marriage, the alliance, my financial problems solved. A pause. And her gone, permanently. Isabella's hands started shaking. Damien stepped in front of her. That's not happening. It's already happening. You're surrounded, outgunned, and completely isolated in a location only 3 people knew about. Celeste's laugh echoed through the radio. One of those people is unconscious in a trunk. One of them is me. Which leaves the fascinating question, who's the third? The implication hit Isabella like a physical blow. Damien's face drained of color. No, he whispered. She wouldn't. Wouldn't she? Celeste sounded delighted. Your grandmother sends her regards, by the way. And a message. Family comes first, always. Damien's hand on the gun started shaking. Isabella grabbed his arm. That's a lie. She's manipulating you. Is she? Celeste continued. Vivian Moretti spent 60 years building this empire. You think she'd let you destroy it over some girl? She approved your relationship publicly to keep you calm. But privately? She told me exactly where to find you. Gave me the coordinates herself. I don't believe you. Then call her. Oh, wait. You can't. Because she's the one who suggested disabling your phone's GPS tracking 3 hours ago. Said it was for security. Really, it was so I could move my people into position without you running. Damien looked at Isabella. Did you touch my phone? Last night, after we... No. But her voice cracked. I swear I didn't. Someone did. The GPS was active when we left Manhattan. By the time I checked it this morning, it was disabled. And you were the only other person in the house. Damien, I'm telling you the truth. Are you? His eyes searched her face desperately. Because right now I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know who to trust. And the only two options are you or my grandmother, the woman who raised me or the woman I've known for 72 hours. Isabella felt something inside her chest shatter. So that's it. You actually think I betrayed you? I think someone did, and the evidence points to you. Evidence Celeste planted. She's playing you. Can't you see that? Mr. Moretti, the tactical team member's voice cut through. You have 30 seconds to surrender. After that, we come in. And Ms. Cruz doesn't leave alive. Damien's jaw worked. His finger hovered over the trigger. Then he made a decision that destroyed Isabella completely. He lowered the gun, set it on the floor, raised his hands. Don't hurt her, he said quietly. I'll cooperate. Just don't hurt her. Isabella stared at him. Damien, what are you doing? Choosing, like my grandmother said. His voice was hollow. I'm choosing the survival option, the one where you live, even if it means... He didn't finish. The tactical team swarmed in fast, professional, emotionless. They separated Isabella and Damien immediately, zip-tied their wrists, shoved them toward different vehicles. Isabella fought, screamed, begged them to listen. Nobody cared. The last thing she saw before they shoved her into a black SUV was Damien's face. Broken, defeated, looking at her like he wasn't sure whether she was the love of his life or the person who'd destroyed it. Then the door slammed shut and Manhattan's most dangerous man disappeared from view. The drive lasted 2 hours. Isabella spent it trying to break the zip ties with techniques she'd seen in movies. None of them worked. Her wrists bled. Her shoulders ached. Her mind raced through every possible explanation for what was happening. Celeste had orchestrated this, obviously. The question was how much she'd manipulated versus how much was real. Had Vivian actually betrayed Damien? Had Isabella unknowingly disabled his GPS while half asleep and drunk on whiskey? Was any of this real or all of it lies? The SUV finally stopped. They hauled Isabella out into blinding sunlight, pushed her across a tarmac toward a private hangar. A jet waited. Engines already running. Isabella's stomach dropped. Where are you taking me? No answer. They shoved her up the stairs into the cabin, forced her into a seat. Celeste sat across from her, legs crossed, sipping champagne like this was a casual afternoon flight. Hello, darling. Her smile was poison. I hope the drive wasn't too uncomfortable. Isabella lunged. The zip ties and seatbelt caught her halfway, jerking her back hard enough to bruise. She snarled through the pain. Where's Damien? Safe. For now. Being transported back to Manhattan, where his father's waiting to have a very serious conversation about family obligations and choosing appropriate partners. Celeste sipped her champagne. You, on the other hand, are going somewhere much more permanent. You can't do this. People know I'm with him. If you disappear, the official story will be that you couldn't handle the pressure of dating Damien Moretti and left on your own. Tragic, really. But these things happen. Celeste leaned forward. Nobody will look for you, Isabella, because nobody cares. You're exactly what you always were. Nobody. And nobodies vanish all the time without anyone noticing. Isabella's vision blurred with rage. He'll find me. Will he? After discovering you disabled his GPS? After learning you were the leak that compromised his location? After realizing you might have been working with me the entire time? Celeste's laugh was cruel. By the time I'm done, Damien will hate you more than he ever loved you, and you'll spend the rest of your very short life knowing you lost everything because you were stupid enough to trust someone like me. I never trusted you. No. But you trusted him. That was your real mistake. Celeste finished her champagne, set the glass down delicately. Love makes people weak, Isabella. Damien learned that lesson today. You're about to learn it permanently. The jet's engines roared louder. They were moving, accelerating down the runway. Isabella twisted against the restraints, panic flooding her system. Where are you taking me? Does it matter? You'll be dead before anyone thinks to look. The jet lifted off. Isabella watched New York disappear beneath clouds, taking with it any hope of rescue, redemption, or survival. She thought about Damien's face in those final moments, the uncertainty in his eyes, the way he'd chosen surrender over her. She thought about her mother's photograph sitting in her duffel bag, now probably being searched by Vincent Moretti's people. She thought about Maria, who'd warned her this would end badly and been absolutely right. Then she stopped thinking and started planning. Because if Celeste Devereaux thought Isabella Cruz was going to die quietly, like a nobody, she was about to learn exactly how wrong that assumption was. The jet leveled off at cruising altitude. Celeste stood, stretched lazily. "I need to make a call. Don't go anywhere." She laughed at her own joke and disappeared into the cockpit. The moment she was gone, Isabella started working the zip ties again. Blood made them slippery. That was good. Meant they might slide. She twisted her wrists, ignoring the pain, focusing entirely on the plastic cutting into skin. One of the ties had a weak point where the locking mechanism caught. If she could... The tie snapped. Isabella's hands came free. She didn't waste time celebrating. The seatbelt came off next. Then she moved quickly through the cabin, searching for anything useful. Emergency exit marked clearly. She memorized its location. Fire extinguisher mounted near the cockpit door. Potential weapon. First aid kit under the seats. She grabbed it, wrapped her bleeding wrists as fast as possible. Then she heard Celeste's voice from the cockpit. "Yes, I have her. Landing in 3 hours. Make sure the cleanup crew is ready. No traces, no questions, no body that can be identified." Pause. "I don't care what it costs. Just handle it." 3 hours. Isabella had 3 hours to figure out how to survive this. She moved back to her seat, slipped the broken zip tie into her pocket, positioned herself exactly how she'd been before. Slumped, defeated, helpless. When Celeste emerged from the cockpit, Isabella didn't look up. "Still alive?" "Good." Celeste dropped back into her seat. "I'd hate for you to miss the grand finale." Isabella kept her voice small, broken. "Why? Why do all this? You could have just walked away." "Walk away from a billion-dollar empire? From the life I was promised since childhood?" Celeste's expression went cold. "I built my entire existence around becoming Damian Moretti's wife. My family invested everything in that alliance. And then you showed up, some random nobody from Queens, and destroyed decades of planning in 72 hours. So no, Isabella, I couldn't just walk away. I had to destroy you the way you destroyed me." "I didn't destroy anything. You lost him long before I existed." "Maybe," Celeste smiled, "but killing you still feels really good." Isabella waited 3 heartbeats, then moved. She launched out of her seat, grabbed the fire extinguisher off the wall, and swung it at Celeste's head with every ounce of strength she had left. The impact made a sickening crack. Celeste crumpled. Isabella didn't stop to check if she was breathing. She sprinted to the cockpit, yanked the door open. 2 pilots spun in their seats. "Land this plane," Isabella gasped. "Right now, or I start breaking controls until we crash." The co-pilot's hand moved towards something. Radio, weapon, alarm. Isabella slammed the fire extinguisher against the console between them. "Try it, see what happens." Both pilots raised their hands. "Who are you?" the captain asked carefully. "Someone who's had a really bad week. Land. The plane. We're over Pennsylvania, middle of nowhere. There's no..." "Then find somewhere. Highway, field, I don't care. Get this plane on the ground in the next 20 minutes or everyone dies messy." She meant it. The captain must have seen that because he nodded slowly. Okay, just stay calm." "I am calm." Isabella's hand shook violently. "This is me calm. Now land." They landed on a rural highway outside Pittsburgh 17 minutes later. Emergency landing, sirens blaring, local police already en route. The moment the wheels touched asphalt, Isabella was moving. She grabbed Celeste's phone from her unconscious body, sprinted down the stairs, and ran. Highway stretched in both directions, trees, fields, no civilization visible. Behind her, the pilots were shouting, probably calling for help. Isabella ran faster. She made it maybe half a mile before her legs gave out and she collapsed in tall grass beside the road, lungs burning, vision swimming. She pulled out Celeste's phone, 1 number programmed into favorites. Not Damian. Vincent Moretti. Isabella stared at it for a long moment. Then she called. He answered on the second ring. "Is it done?" "No." Isabella's voice came out raw. "But it's about to be. You want me gone? Come get me yourself. I'm done running, done hiding, done being the nobody everyone thinks they can use." She gave him the approximate location from the highway signs she'd passed. "I'll be waiting." "And Vincent?" I'm bringing everything down with me. Your son, your empire. Every secret Celeste told me about your family's operations. All of it, unless you're willing to negotiate. Silence on the other end. Then, you're bluffing. Try me. Isabella ended the call. Then she dialed the only other number she had memorized. Maria answered immediately. Bella? Oh my God, where are you? I've been calling for... Maria, listen carefully. I need you to do something for me. Something that might get you in trouble. Anything. What do you need? Isabella closed her eyes. I need you to call every news outlet you can find. Tell them Isabella Cruz has evidence of criminal operations within the Moretti family empire. Tell them if anything happens to me, a lawyer has instructions to release everything publicly. Tell them... Her voice cracked. Tell them I'm not nobody, not anymore. Bella, what's happening? I'm choosing survival. Isabella opened her eyes, stared at the empty highway. On my terms. For the first time in my life. Just do it, please. And Maria, I love you. No matter what happens next. She hung up before her cousin could argue. Then Isabella Cruz, unemployed college graduate from Queens, fake girlfriend turned real target, nobody who'd somehow fallen in love with Manhattan's most dangerous man, sat in the grass beside a Pennsylvania highway and waited for the war she'd just declared to arrive. Because if she was going down, she was taking everyone with her. And this time, the person choosing her fate would be her. Not Damien, not Celeste, not the Moretti family. Her. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Isabella took a deep breath, stood up, and walked toward them with her hands raised and her head high. The game had changed, and she was done playing by anyone's rules but her own. The Pennsylvania State Police arrived in 4 cruisers, lights painting the afternoon sky red and blue. Isabella stood perfectly still in the middle of the highway, hands raised above her head, blood from her wrists staining the sleeves of Damien's shirt she still wore. The lead officer approached with weapon drawn, calling out commands she barely heard over the pounding of her own heartbeat. On your knees, hands behind your head. Isabella dropped. Gravel bit into her knees through her jeans. She laced her fingers behind her skull and waited while they surrounded her. 5 officers, all shouting different instructions, all treating her like she was armed and dangerous. Maybe she was. Not with weapons, with information. They cuffed her, metal this time, not zip ties, and hauled her to her feet. Read her rights while leading her to a cruiser. The words washed over her like static. Wait! Isabella's voice came out hoarse. The jet. Back there. Woman inside. She's hurt. And 2 pilots who need to be questioned about kidnapping. The lead officer, Hayes, according to his nameplate, studied her face. You're claiming you were kidnapped? I'm claiming a lot of things, but first I need to make a phone call. You get a lawyer. That's it. I don't need a lawyer. I need to speak with someone from the FBI. Organized Crime Division. Isabella held his gaze. Tell them Isabella Cruz has evidence regarding the Moretti family operation in New York. Tell them I'm willing to cooperate fully in exchange for protective custody. And tell them if they don't get here in the next 2 hours, Vincent Moretti will, and your jurisdiction won't mean anything. Hayes' expression shifted. The Moretti family. You've heard of them. Everyone's heard of them. He exchanged glances with another officer. You're serious? Deadly. Isabella's hand shook in the cuffs. Please, I just hijacked a private jet and assaulted a woman who was planning to kill me. I know how this looks, but I'm not the criminal here. I'm the witness. And if you don't get federal protection here immediately, I'm dead before sunset. Something in her voice must have convinced him because Hayes pulled out his radio. This is Unit 7, requesting immediate FBI liaison. We have a potential witness in federal custody claiming knowledge of organized crime activity. Requesting urgent response. The radio crackled. Dispatch confirmed. They put Isabella in the back of a cruiser anyway, standard procedure, Hayes explained, until federal agents arrived to verify her story. Isabella leaned her head against the window and watched the jet in the distance. Paramedics were loading someone onto a stretcher. Celeste, probably. Still alive. Good. Isabella wanted her alive to face consequences. Wanted everyone alive to face what they'd done. The wait lasted 90 minutes. By the time 2 black sedans pulled up with federal plates, Isabella had run through her entire story 3 times in her head, editing out anything that made her look complicit and emphasizing everything that made Damien look salvageable. Because despite everything, the doubt, the betrayal, the moment he'd lowered his gun and surrendered, she still loved him. Stupid, irrational, self-destructive love. But love nonetheless. The FBI agents introduced themselves as Agent Morrison and Agent Chen, both mid-40s, both carrying themselves with the particular authority of people who'd spent decades dealing with exactly this kind of chaos. They moved Isabella from the police cruiser to an unmarked van, removed the handcuffs, and sat across from her with recording equipment already running. "Ms. Cruz?" Morrison's voice was neutral, professional. "You've made some serious allegations. Before we proceed, I need to know, are you making these statements voluntarily? Has anyone coerced or threatened you?" "Yes, I'm voluntary. And yes, I've been threatened. By Celeste Devereaux, by Vincent Moretti, by people working for both of them." Isabella met his eyes. "I'm here because I'm terrified and desperate and completely out of options. So whatever you need from me, I'll give you. Just keep me alive long enough to do it." Chen leaned forward. "Tell us everything. Start from the beginning." So Isabella did. She told them about accepting the executive assistant position, about Damien kissing her to escape his father's arranged marriage, about the fake relationship becoming real, about death threats, leaked addresses, the attack on Vivian Moretti's estate. She told them about being taken to the safe house, about Celeste's mercenaries, about waking up on a jet headed toward her own execution. She told them everything except the parts that might implicate Damien in actual crimes, those she carefully omitted. When she finished, both agents sat in silence. Finally, Morrison spoke. "That's quite a story. It's the truth. Can you prove any of it?" Isabella pulled out Celeste's phone from her pocket. She'd managed to keep it hidden during the arrest. "This has calls to Vincent Moretti, text messages coordinating my kidnapping, probably more if you dig deeper." Chen took the phone carefully. "This is evidence in a federal investigation now. Anything else?" "Witnesses, the pilots on that jet, the tactical team Celeste hired. Marcus, Damien's head of security, he knows about the threats." Isabella's voice cracked. "And Damien, he can verify most of this. If he'll talk to you. If he doesn't hate me too much to cooperate." "What makes you think he hates you?" "Because someone made him believe I betrayed him, disabled his GPS, leaked our location to Celeste." Isabella looked down at her bandaged wrists. "I didn't, but I don't know if he'll believe that." Morrison and Chen exchanged glances. "Ms. Cruz," Morrison said carefully, "we've been investigating the Moretti family for 3 years. Multiple suspected connections to organized crime, money laundering, extortion, but everyone's too afraid to testify. Witnesses disappear or recant. Evidence vanishes. We've never gotten close to actual charges." He paused. "If what you're saying is true, if Vincent Moretti and Celeste Devereaux conspired to kidnap and potentially murder you, that gives us leverage we've never had before." "What kind of leverage?" "The kind that might convince Damien Moretti to cooperate, to give us information about his father's operations in exchange for immunity and protection." Chen's expression was unreadable. "Would you be willing to help us make that happen?" Isabella's heart slammed against her ribs. "You want me to testify against Vincent. We want you to help us dismantle a criminal organization. And if that means testifying, yes. Vincent will kill me. Not if we put you in witness protection. New identity, new location, complete security." Morrison leaned forward. "You'd be safe, Ms. Cruz. Safer than you've ever been." "But I'd lose everything, everyone, my entire life." "You lost that the moment you got involved with Damien Moretti." Chen's voice was blunt but not unkind. "Now you're just choosing what you get in exchange for the loss." Isabella closed her eyes. Witness protection meant disappearing. No contact with Maria. No way to reach Damien. No possibility of the life she'd stupidly started imagining. But staying meant death. Real, permanent, inevitable death. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll testify. I'll help you. Just promise me one thing." "What?" "Let me talk to Damien. One time, before I disappear. I need to tell him the truth. That I didn't betray him. That I—" Her voice broke. "That I loved him, even if he doesn't believe it." Morrison considered this. "If we can locate him and convince him to cooperate, we'll arrange a meeting. But Ms. Cruz, don't get your hopes up. Men like Damien Moretti don't usually choose love over family. no matter what they feel. I know. Isabella opened her eyes. But I need to try anyway. They moved her to a secure facility outside Pittsburgh. FBI safe house, concrete and bulletproof glass, guards rotating every 6 hours. Isabella spent 3 days there giving depositions, recording testimony, going over every detail of her story until the words lost meaning. No word from Damien. No word about whether he was safe, arrested, or dead. Maria called twice. The FBI allowed it under supervision and cried through both conversations. Isabella couldn't tell her where she was or what was happening, just that she was safe and would explain everything someday. Maybe, if she survived. On the 4th day, Morrison entered the safe house with an expression Isabella couldn't read. "We found Damien Moretti." Isabella shot to her feet. "Where? Is he okay?" "He's in Manhattan, at his penthouse. Under surveillance, but not in custody." Morrison sat down heavily. "He's agreed to meet with you. One time, supervised, tomorrow morning." Relief and terror hit simultaneously. "He knows I'm alive?" "He knows you hijacked Celeste's jet and cooperated with federal authorities. He doesn't know what you've told us." Morrison's gaze sharpened. "Ms. Cruz, I need to be clear about something. This meeting is a negotiation tactic. We're hoping your presence will convince Damien to flip on his father, to give us testimony that actually sticks. If he refuses, if he chooses Vincent over you, we lose our best chance at bringing down the Moretti operation. And if he chooses me, then he becomes a witness, like you, which means witness protection for both of you. New identities, new lives, together, if that's what you both want. Together." The word hung in the air like a prayer. "When do we leave?" Isabella asked quietly. "Now. We drive through the night. You meet him at 8 a.m. Whatever happens after that determines everything." They transported Isabella to Manhattan in an armored vehicle with 4 agents and enough weapons to start a small war. She spent the 6-hour drive staring out tinted windows, watching Pennsylvania give way to New Jersey, give way to New York, and trying to prepare for seeing Damien again. What would she say? How could she explain? Would he even listen? They arrived at a federal building in Lower Manhattan as dawn broke over the city. Isabella hadn't been gone long, less than a week, but it felt like years. Morrison led her through security checkpoints, down sterile corridors, finally into a conference room with cameras in every corner and a table bolted to the floor. "He'll be here in 10 minutes, Morrison said. "You'll have 30 minutes to talk. Supervised, recorded. Anything you say can be used in court, so choose your words carefully." "Will I ever see him again? After this?" Morrison's expression softened slightly. "That depends entirely on what he chooses, and what you're both willing to sacrifice for it." Then he left. Isabella sat alone in the conference room, heart hammering, hands shaking, every nerve ending screaming. The door opened. Damien walked in. He looked terrible, haunted, exhausted, thinner than she remembered, dark circles under his eyes, stubble covering his jaw, shirt wrinkled like he'd been wearing it for days, but alive. Whole. Here. Their eyes met across the table. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Isabella stood. "Damien, don't." His voice was cold. "Don't say anything that sounds like an excuse or an apology. I'm here because the FBI said you had information, not because I want reconciliation." The words hit like bullets. Isabella forced herself to stay standing. "I didn't betray you." "Your GPS disable says otherwise." "I never touched your phone. I swear on my mother's grave I never disabled anything." Isabella moved closer to the table. "Think about it. Why would I? What would I gain? I had no contact with Celeste, no reason to help her, no motive except—" Her voice cracked. "Except loving you." Which apparently was crime enough. Damien's jaw tightened. "Someone disabled that GPS. Someone told Celeste where to find us. And you were the only other person in that house." "No, I wasn't." Isabella pulled out the chair, sat down hard. "Your phone was on the kitchen counter when we went upstairs, for hours. Anyone with remote access could have disabled it. Celeste had hackers, Damien, resources. She didn't need me to find you. She just needed you to think she did." "Why?" "To destroy us. To make you doubt me. To ensure that even if I survived, you'd hate me too much to protect me." Isabella leaned forward. She told me everything on that jet. About how she planned to kill me and frame it as me running away. About how she'd convinced your grandmother to give up your location. About how... Stop. Damien's hand hit the table. My grandmother would never... Wouldn't she? You said it yourself. Family comes first, always. What if she decided I was too much of a threat to the Empire? What if Vincent convinced her this was the only way? Isabella's voice rose. I don't know what's true anymore, Damien, but I know what I lived through. And I know I didn't betray you. I couldn't, because I fell in love with you. Real love, not fake, not strategy. Real. Silence filled the room like smoke. Damien stared at her, something cracking in his expression. I wanted to believe you, he said finally, when they pulled you away, when Celeste's people separated us. I wanted to believe you were innocent, but the evidence was planted, manufactured, part of her plan. Isabella reached across the table. Damien didn't take her hand. I hijacked that jet, knocked Celeste unconscious, forced the pilots to land in Pennsylvania and called your father to threaten him with exposure. Does that sound like someone working with her? It sounds like someone desperate. I was desperate. I am desperate. Tears burned her eyes. I'm desperate to make you understand that I chose you. Over safety, over common sense, over everything rational. I chose you, and I'd do it again even knowing how it ends. Damien closed his eyes. How does it end? That depends on what you choose now. The door opened. Morrison stepped in. Time's up. Miss Cruz, Wait! Damien's eyes snapped open. Give us 5 more minutes, please. Morrison looked between them, then nodded. 5 minutes. He left. Damien finally reached across the table, took Isabella's hand. His palm was warm, solid, real. The FBI wants me to testify against my father, he said quietly, to give them everything I know about his operations. Money laundering, extortion, connections to organized crime across the East Coast. In exchange, they'll give me immunity and witness protection. Will you do it? I don't know. His thumb traced circles on her wrist, right over the bandages. My father is a monster. I've known that my entire life. But he's also my father, the only parent I have left. Testifying destroys him, destroys the family, everything my grandfather built. Everything your grandfather built through violence and fear, Isabella said softly. Is that really worth protecting? No, but it's all I've ever known. Damien looked at her. If I testify, I lose everyone. My grandmother, the family, my entire identity. I become nobody, just another witness in protection with a fake name and a fake life. You become free. Isabella squeezed his hand. Free to choose who you want to be instead of who your family made you. Free to build something that doesn't require hurting people. Free to... She hesitated. Free to be with me. If you still want that. Of course I want that. His voice broke. Isabella, I've wanted nothing else since the moment I kissed you in my office. But wanting isn't enough. Not in my world, not with the consequences this carries. Then change your world. Choose a new one. With me. Damien stood abruptly, paced to the window. They'll hunt us. My father, the families we expose, everyone whose lives we destroy with testimony. Witness protection isn't perfect. People get found. People die. People die anyway. At least this way we die trying to do something right. He turned to face her. You really believe that? I have to. Because I've got nothing left except you and the truth. And if those aren't enough, if you choose your father over us, then I'll testify alone and disappear alone and spend the rest of my life knowing I loved someone who couldn't love me back the same way. The declaration hung between them. Damien crossed the room in 3 strides, pulled Isabella out of her chair, and kissed her like the world was ending. Maybe it was. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. I choose you, he whispered. I choose us. And I'll burn the entire empire down if that's what it takes. Isabella's breath released in a sob. You mean it? Every word. He pulled her closer. I'll testify. I'll give them everything, and then we disappear together. Build something new, something clean, something that doesn't make me hate myself every time I look in the mirror. They'll come after us. Let them try. His smile was sharp, dangerous, and completely authentic. I've been planning for this possibility my entire life. The FBI thinks witness protection is their jurisdiction. They're wrong. I have resources they don't know about, money hidden offshore, contacts who owe me favors, safe houses in places no one would think to look. His eyes met hers. If we do this, we do it my way. We cooperate with the FBI until the trials are over. Then we vanish. Completely. And we never look back. What about your grandmother? The rest of your family? Pain flickered across his face. They made their choices. Now I'm making mine. Morrison opened the door. Time's actually up now. Mr. Moretti, have you made a decision? Damien turned, keeping one arm around Isabella. I have. I'll testify against Vincent Moretti and anyone else connected to criminal operations within the family business. I'll provide documentation, testimony, whatever you need. In exchange, I want full immunity and witness protection for both of us. Together. Non-negotiable. Morrison's expression lit up. Done. We'll start paperwork immediately. One more condition. Damien's voice went hard. I want Celeste Devereaux charged with kidnapping, attempted murder, and conspiracy. And I want Vincent Moretti arrested before he figures out what we're doing and destroys evidence. Already in progress. We raided Moretti Holdings 3 hours ago. Vincent's in custody. Celeste's in the hospital under guard. You gave her a serious concussion, Ms. Cruz, and facing multiple federal charges. Morrison smiled. You two just gave us the biggest organized crime prosecution of the decade. Congratulations. Isabella looked at Damien. We did it. We survived. He pulled her against his chest. Everything else is just paperwork. They spent the next week in FBI custody, giving depositions that would form the foundation of the federal case against Vincent Moretti, Celeste Devereaux, and 14 other individuals connected to the criminal enterprise. Damien provided documentation proving money laundering through shell companies, extortion of business rivals, and connections to 3 unsolved murders from the past decade. Isabella corroborated everything she'd witnessed, from the initial threats to the kidnapping to Celeste's explicit statements about planning her murder. Together, they built a case prosecutors called airtight. Vincent Moretti's empire began collapsing before the trial even started. Business partners fled. Bank accounts got frozen. Properties seized. The news cycle exploded with headlines about Manhattan's fallen crime family. Through it all, Damien never wavered, even when his grandmother sent word through lawyers that she considered him dead to the family. Even when former associates threatened retaliation. Even when the reality of what they were doing, destroying everything he'd been raised to protect, settled over him like ash. Isabella stayed beside him through all of it, held his hand during testimony, sat with him through sleepless nights when guilt and doubt threatened to drown him, reminded him that survival sometimes meant betraying the people who betrayed you first. On the 8th day, Morrison entered their secure room with news. Trial's been fast-tracked. Vincent's lawyer tried to delay, but the judge denied it. You'll both testify within 2 weeks. He set down folders. After that, we move you into witness protection. New names, new location, new lives. You'll have 72 hours to tie up loose ends, say goodbyes, then you disappear permanently. Isabella's chest tightened. Can I see my cousin? One last time? Supervised, limited time, but yes. She looked at Damien. Can you live with this? Really? I can live with you. He took her hand. Everything else is just details. The meeting with Maria happened in a federal building under conditions that felt more like a prison visit than a goodbye. They sat across from each other at a metal table, phones confiscated, guards watching from corners. Maria's eyes were red from crying. They won't tell me where you're going, she said immediately. Just that you're disappearing, forever. I'm sorry, Isabella's voice cracked. I never meant for any of this to happen. I just wanted a job. And then I met him and everything spiraled and... Do you love him? Really? Maria grabbed her hands across the table. Because if you're doing this out of fear or obligation, we can figure something else out. You don't have to disappear with him just because I love him. The words came out simple, absolute. More than I've ever loved anyone. And he loves me, enough to destroy his entire life to keep me safe. So yes, I'm choosing this. Choosing him. Choosing a future that's ours instead of one dictated by his family. Maria's tears spilled over. I'm going to miss you so much. I'm going to miss you too, every day, for the rest of my life. Isabella squeezed her hands. But Maria, I need you to understand something. I'm not losing my life. I'm finally getting to choose it. For the first time since Mom died, I'm choosing something for myself, and it's him. Then I'm happy for you, terrified, but happy. Maria wiped her eyes. Promise me you'll be safe, that you'll build something good wherever you end up. I promise. They hugged until the guards said time was up. Isabella left the building and didn't look back, because looking back meant breaking, and she needed to stay whole for what came next. The trial started on a Tuesday. Federal courthouse, maximum security, media circus outside that required riot police to control. Isabella testified first, 3 hours of recounting everything from the fake relationship to the kidnapping to waking up on a jet headed toward her execution. Celeste's lawyer tried to discredit her, called her an opportunist, accused her of fabricating evidence for money. Isabella held her ground, showed her scarred wrists, played recordings of death threats, forced the jury to see her as human instead of pawn. When she finished, half the courtroom was crying. Damien testified the next day. He walked into that courtroom like he was walking to his own execution, shoulders back, expression cold, every word measured and deliberate. For 6 hours, he detailed his father's criminal operations, named names, provided dates, produced documents proving money laundering through legitimate businesses, admitted his own complicity in things he'd turned a blind eye to. And when Vincent's lawyer asked if he felt guilt about destroying his family, Damien looked directly at his father and said, "My only guilt is not doing this sooner." The courtroom exploded. Journalists shouted questions. Cameras flashed despite being banned. Vincent lunged across the table toward his son before bailiffs tackled him. The judge called recess. Isabella waited outside for Damien, and when he emerged, she saw tears on his face for the first time. She pulled him into her arms and held him while he shook. "It's done," she whispered. "You're free." "Am I?" His voice was muffled against her shoulder. "Because it doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like murder. It's survival, for both of us." She pulled back to look at him. "And Damien, I'm proud of you. Your mother would have been proud of you. You chose right over easy. That's more than most people ever do." He kissed her then, desperate, grateful, clinging to her like she was the only real thing left. The verdict came back 3 days later. Guilty on all counts. Vincent Moretti sentenced to 40 years in federal prison. Celeste Devereaux to 25. 14 associates facing various sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years. The Moretti empire officially dismantled. It was over. Morrison gave them 72 hours, 3 days to close bank accounts, sign paperwork, and prepare for permanent disappearance. On the final night, Damien stood in his penthouse one last time, looking out at Manhattan. Isabella joined him at the windows. "Second thoughts?" she asked quietly. "1,000 of them." He slid an arm around her waist. "But none that change my mind." "Where do we go from here?" "Somewhere warm, somewhere quiet, somewhere nobody knows the name Moretti." He looked down at her. "Somewhere we can be nobody together." "I've been nobody my whole life," Isabella said. "It's not as bad as people think." Damien smiled, genuine, soft, unguarded. "Then teach me. Show me how to be ordinary." "Deal. But first," she turned to face him fully. "First we get married." He blinked. "What?" "We're about to disappear into new identities, new names, new everything, which means this is the only chance we have to marry each other as ourselves, as Damien Moretti and Isabella Cruz, before those people stop existing." She took his hands. "I want to marry you, tomorrow, before we vanish." "That's insane." "Everything about us is insane, but I want this one real thing, one choice we make together while we're still ourselves. Do you?" Damien stared at her. Then he laughed. Short, disbelieving, completely authentic. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes." He pulled her close. "Let's get married. Let's make one reckless decision that's actually ours before the government makes all our decisions for us." They married the next morning in a federal office with Morrison as witness and Chen as officiant, barely legal, completely improvised, and entirely perfect. Isabella wore jeans and Damien's shirt. Damien wore day-old stubble and genuine happiness. They exchanged vows written on coffee-stained napkins. And when Morrison said, "You may kiss your bride," Damien Moretti kissed Isabella Cruz like she'd saved his life. Because she had. That afternoon, they walked out of the federal building as Mr. and Mrs. James Whitaker, 30-something couple, relocating to Portland for his new job in tech consulting and her plans to start a small business. The people they'd been ceased to exist. The empire they'd destroyed was history. And somewhere between New York's skyline disappearing in the rear-view mirror and the open highway stretching toward wherever came next, Isabella realized something. She wasn't nobody anymore. She was somebody's wife, somebody's partner, somebody who'd brought down a criminal empire and lived to tell the story, somebody who'd chosen love over safety and survived anyway. Damien reached across the console, laced his fingers through hers. "No regrets?" he asked. Isabella looked at him, at the man who'd destroyed his family to protect her, who'd chosen unknown over legacy, who'd married her in a federal office wearing yesterday's clothes, and smiled. Not a single one. They drove west as the sun set behind them, leaving Manhattan and murder and everything they'd ever been burning in the distance. And for the first time in either of their lives, the future felt like possibility instead of prison. Together, they'd survived the impossible. Now they just had to learn how to live with it. Portland, Oregon looked nothing like Manhattan. No skyscrapers clawing at the sky, no sirens wailing through the night. No sense that the entire city was built on layers of secrets and violence and money that never quite washed clean. Just rain, trees, coffee shops on every corner, and people who smiled at strangers without calculating what they could take from them. Isabella, now Emily Whitaker, according to every legal document the FBI had provided, stood at the window of their small rental house and watched water stream down the glass. 6 months had passed since they'd driven away from New York. 6 months of learning how to be ordinary. It was harder than she'd expected. Damien, always Damien in her head, even when she forced herself to use the new name out loud, came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, rested his chin on her shoulder. "You're thinking too loud," he murmured. "Can't help it." She leaned back against him. "I keep waiting for something to explode, for someone to find us, for this to stop feeling like borrowed time. It's our time now, nobody else's." "Is it?" Isabella turned in his arms. "Because I still wake up some nights and forget where I am. Still reach for a phone number that doesn't exist anymore to call a cousin I'm never allowed to contact. Still hear your real name in my head and have to stop myself from saying it out loud." Damien's expression tightened. "I know. I do the same thing." "Do you regret it? Any of it?" "No." No hesitation. "I regret what it cost, but I don't regret the choice." Isabella wanted to believe him. Most days she did. But some nights when the rain was too loud or the silence too heavy, she wondered if they'd traded one kind of prison for another. Damien had taken a job as a consultant for a tech startup, using skills he'd developed running a corporate empire to help small businesses optimize operations. It paid a fraction of what he'd been worth before. He claimed not to care. Isabella had opened a small bookstore in a neighborhood still recovering from economic downturn. Used books, local authors, a coffee bar in the back. It barely broke even most months. She loved it anyway. They lived in a 2-bedroom house with a garden they were learning to maintain, and neighbors whose names they'd memorized but whose lives remained carefully distant. This was survival. Quiet, boring, safe survival. It should have been enough. Isabella's phone buzzed. The new one registered under her fake identity, carefully monitored by the FBI for security. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped. "Don't answer it," Damien said immediately. "It might be Morrison. Updates on the case." "Morrison has a specific number. This isn't it." Isabella stared at the phone. It kept ringing. Against every instinct, she answered. "Hello?" Silence on the other end, then breathing. "I know where you are." The voice was unfamiliar. Male, cold. Isabella's hand started shaking. "Who is this?" "Someone Vincent Moretti paid very well to find his son. Turns out witness protection isn't as secure as the FBI thinks, especially when you leave digital breadcrumbs everywhere you go." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't. Emily Whitaker, bookstore owner, married to James Whitaker, tech consultant, living at 2847 Hawthorne Drive, Portland, Oregon. Should I continue?" Ice flooded her veins. Damien grabbed the phone. "Listen carefully. I don't know who you are or what you think you know, but if you come anywhere near us, I will destroy you. I've already destroyed one empire. Don't make me add you to the body count. Big talk from a man hiding behind a fake name. The voice laughed. Vincent says hello, and he wants you to know family business isn't finished just because you're in prison. The empire continues, and you're still part of it whether you want to be or not. The line went dead. Damien stared at the phone for a long moment, then hurled it against the wall hard enough to shatter. Pack a bag, he said flatly. We're leaving. Leaving where? They found us, Damien. If they found us once, then we disappear better this time. He was already moving toward the bedroom. I have contingencies. Places even the FBI doesn't know about. We can be gone in an hour. And then what? Run forever? Change names again? Keep building lives just to abandon them when the past catches up? Yes. He spun to face her. Yes, that's exactly what we do. Because the alternative is dying, and I'm not letting that happen. Isabella sat down slowly on the couch. I'm tired, Damien. Emily, don't call me that. Her voice cracked. I'm not Emily. I'm not Mrs. Whitaker. I'm Isabella Cruz from Queens, and I'm exhausted from pretending to be someone I'm not. From running, from waiting for the other shoe to drop. She looked at him. What if we stopped running? What if we stayed and fought? With what weapons? We're civilians now. No security, no resources, no backup except the FBI, who can't even keep our location secure. We have each other, and we have the truth. Isabella stood. Your father's in prison. His empire is dismantled. Whoever called is bluffing, trying to scare us into making mistakes. Or they're serious, and staying here means dying in our sleep. Then we call Morrison, get federal protection, move to a new location through proper channels. The proper channels are what got us found in the first place. Damien ran both hands through his hair. Isabella, I can't... He stopped himself. I can't lose you. Not now. Not after everything we survived to get here. You won't lose me, but I can't keep running either. At some point, we have to stand our ground or we'll spend our entire lives looking over our shoulders. Damien stared at her. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we call Morrison, report the threat, and let the FBI handle it. Then we stay exactly where we are and dare them to come for us. Isabella crossed her arms. Because I'm done being afraid. Done letting Vincent Moretti and his criminal empire dictate how I live. If someone wants us dead, they'll have to work for it. That's the stupidest plan I've ever heard. It's the bravest one we've got. Silence stretched between them. Then Damien started laughing, short, exhausted, edged with something that sounded like respect. You're absolutely insane, he said. I learned from the best. He crossed to her, cupped her face in both hands, and kissed her hard. Okay, we stay, we fight, and if we die, at least we die as ourselves instead of whoever the FBI told us to be. They called Morrison from a secure line within 20 minutes. He arrived in Portland by that evening with a full tactical team and enough surveillance equipment to monitor every street within a 5-block radius of their house. You should have reported this immediately, Morrison said, setting up monitors in their living room. Any threat to your safety compromises the entire protection program. Who found us? Isabella asked. How? We're investigating, but preliminary analysis suggests someone with serious resources and technical capabilities. Morrison pulled up data on his laptop. The call was routed through multiple proxies, originated somewhere in Eastern Europe, paid for with cryptocurrency. Professional work. Vincent's hiring foreign contractors now? Damien leaned against the wall. He's more desperate than I thought, or more connected. Morrison's expression was grim. Your testimony damaged his organization, but it didn't eliminate it completely. There are still loyalists, people who believe family comes before law, and some of them have skills we didn't account for. So what's the plan? We trace the call back to its source, identify who's behind it, and neutralize the threat before they make a move. Morrison looked between them. But I need you both to understand, this changes everything. You're not just witnesses anymore. You're targets, active, confirmed targets, which means enhanced security protocols. No leaving the house without escort. No contact with anyone outside approved channels. Essentially house arrest until we resolve this. Isabella felt her chest tighten. For how long? However long it takes. That's not a timeline, that's a prison sentence. It's survival. Morrison's voice was firm. And unless you have a better idea, it's what's happening. Isabella looked at Damien. Do we have a better idea? His jaw tightened. No, but I'm working on one. The house arrest lasted 3 weeks. 3 weeks of FBI agents rotating shifts outside their door. 3 weeks of every window covered, every movement monitored, every moment feeling like they were holding their breath waiting for violence. The bookstore sat closed, losing money Isabella didn't have. Damien's job let him work remotely, but the isolation was eating him alive. They fought more than they'd ever fought. Sharp, bitter arguments about choices made and consequences neither of them could control. On the 21st day, Morrison arrived with news. We found him, the contractor Vincent hired. He spread photos across their kitchen table. Former intelligence operative from Belarus, specializes in tracking and elimination. Goes by the name Volkov. No first name, just Volkov. Isabella stared at the photos. The man looked ordinary, middle-aged, average build, the kind of person you'd pass on the street without noticing. How did Vincent contact him from prison? Damien asked. Through his lawyer. Coded messages hidden in legal correspondence. We didn't catch it until we went back through 6 months of communications. Morrison pulled out another file. Volkov's been in the country for 3 months, entered on a forged passport. Been surveilling you both since you arrived in Portland. 3 months. Isabella felt sick. He's been watching us for 3 months. And now he's making his move. We intercepted communication suggesting he plans to act within the next 72 hours. Then we need to leave, Damien said immediately. We need to catch him. Morrison's expression was steel. This is our chance to end the threat permanently. Volkov's good, but he's not invisible. We've identified his base of operations, a motel 6 miles from here. We're planning a raid for tomorrow night. And if it goes wrong? Isabella's voice was small. It won't. We have the element of surprise, superior numbers, and federal authority on our side. Morrison looked at them both. I need you to trust me one more time. Stay here. Stay safe. Let us handle this. Isabella wanted to argue. Instead, she nodded. Because what else could she do? Morrison's team raided the motel the next night at 9 p.m. Isabella and Damien sat in their living room listening to updates through Morrison's radio communications, hearts pounding in sync. Team 1, moving in. Team 2, cover the exits. Team 3, static. Then gunfire. Rapid, sustained, echoing through the radio like thunder. Damien grabbed Isabella's hand. Something's wrong. More gunfire. Shouting. Commands screamed over each other. Then Morrison's voice cut through. He's not here. Repeat. Volkov's not at the location. It's a decoy. All units return to... The radio went dead. Damien stood immediately. He's coming here. How do you know? Because that's what I would do. Make them think I'm somewhere else. Wait until they commit resources, then strike while they're distracted. He moved to the closet, pulled out a lockbox Isabella didn't know existed. Inside was a gun. I bought this the first week we got here, just in case. You said we were safe. I lied. He checked the weapon with practiced efficiency. Upstairs bathroom, lock the door and don't come out until I tell you. I'm not leaving you. Well, Isabella. He grabbed her shoulders. Please, for once, just let me protect you without arguing. She saw fear in his eyes. Real, desperate fear. So she ran upstairs, locked herself in the bathroom, sat in the tub with her phone clutched in shaking hands, and waited. The house was silent for exactly 3 minutes. Then glass shattered downstairs. Isabella's breath stopped. Footsteps. Multiple sets, moving through the house with the efficiency of professionals who'd done this 1,000 times. Damien's voice rang out. I'm armed. Leave now and nobody dies. Noble sentiment. Unfamiliar voice, accented, cold, but inaccurate. Someone dies tonight, Mr. Moretti. Question is whether it's you, your wife, or both. Volkov. You remember me. I'm flattered. We've never met. No. But your father described you perfectly, said you were too soft to survive in the real world, that you'd betrayed family for a woman who wasn't worth the blood spilled. Volkov's footsteps moved closer. I'm here to prove him right. Gunshot. Isabella screamed despite herself. More shots, furniture crashing, the sound of bodies hitting walls. She couldn't stay hidden. Isabella unlocked the bathroom door, crept into the hallway. Downstairs, the fight continued. Damien was holding his own, barely, trading blows with someone clearly trained in combat. But there were others. At least two more figures moving through the shadows. Isabella saw one heading for the stairs, heading for her. She grabbed the only weapon available, a heavy ceramic vase from the hallway table, and waited. The figure reached the top stair. Isabella swung. The vase connected with his head hard enough to shatter. The man went down hard, unconscious before he hit the floor, but the noise drew attention. Volkov looked up at her, smiled. There she is, the woman worth destroying an empire for. He pointed his gun at Isabella. Tell me, Mrs. Moretti, are you really worth all this death? Damien moved faster than Isabella had ever seen him move, tackled Volkov before he could fire. Both men crashed into the wall. The gun skidded across the floor. Isabella ran down the stairs, grabbed the weapon. Her hand shook so badly she almost dropped it. Damien and Volkov fought like animals, brutal, desperate, no rules. Blood spattered the walls, bones cracked. Both men were flagging, exhaustion and injury taking their toll. Volkov got the upper hand, slammed Damien's head against the floor hard enough to daze him, pulled a knife from somewhere, raised it. Isabella fired. The shot went wide, missing Volkov by inches but close enough to make him flinch. He turned toward her. She fired again. This time didn't miss. Volkov went down. Isabella dropped the gun like it burned her hands. Damien scrambled to his feet, swaying but upright. The others, one's unconscious upstairs. I don't know where. The third attacker came from the kitchen, grabbed Isabella from behind, arm around her throat, squeezing hard enough to cut off air. She clawed at his arm, couldn't breathe, vision starting to blur. Damien picked up Volkov's knife. Let her go. You want her? Come get her. Damien moved. What happened next was fast, violent, and absolutely final. When it was over, 3 bodies lay on their living room floor. Isabella sat against the wall, gasping for air, hand pressed to her bruised throat. Damien dropped the knife, crossed to her, pulled her into his arms so tightly she couldn't tell where he ended, and she began. It's over, he whispered. It's over. You're safe. We're safe, Isabella corrected, voice raw. Sirens wailed in the distance. Morrison burst through the door 2 minutes later with a full tactical team, weapons drawn, finding only Isabella and Damien sitting in the wreckage of their home holding each other while blood dried on the walls around them. The aftermath took months to resolve. Morrison's team processed the scene, removed the bodies, documented everything for federal reports. Volkov's phone revealed communications with Vincent Moretti's lawyer confirming he'd been hired to kill both Isabella and Damien as revenge for testimony that destroyed the family. Vincent was charged with attempted murder from behind bars. His lawyer disbarred and arrested as an accomplice. The remaining Moretti loyalists scattered when news spread that the legendary Volkov had failed his assignment. The message was clear. Coming after Damien and Isabella meant dying. And suddenly, nobody wanted to be the next body in the ground. The FBI offered to relocate them again. Different city, different names, different lives. Isabella and Damien declined. We're done running, Isabella told Morrison in the hospital where they were both recovering from injuries sustained during the fight. If someone else comes for us, we'll deal with it. But we're not disappearing again. We're staying in Portland, as James and Emily Whitaker. And we're building the life we chose instead of the one fear dictated. Morrison looked between them. You're absolutely certain? Completely, Damien said. Then you're on your own. The FBI can't provide permanent protection for witnesses who refuse relocation. We know. Isabella reached for Damien's hand. But we'll manage. We always do. They returned to the house 3 weeks later after FBI cleaners had erased all evidence of what happened there. It should have felt haunted. Instead, it felt like freedom. Isabella reopened her bookstore, built a loyal customer base, started hosting reading groups and author events that gave her the community she'd been missing. Damien continued consulting, but also started teaching business strategy at a local community college. Found he loved working with students who reminded him of himself before the empire consumed him. They renovated the house together, painted walls, planted a garden, built something that was genuinely theirs. Maria reached out through a carefully monitored FBI channel 6 months after the Volkov incident. Isabella was allowed one phone call. 30 minutes, supervised. She cried through most of it, told Maria she was safe, happy, building a real life with someone she loved. Maria cried too, said she'd met someone, was planning a wedding, wished Isabella could be there. Neither of them mentioned that they probably wouldn't speak again for years, maybe never. But knowing the other existed, was alive, was enough. 1 year after fleeing Manhattan, Isabella stood in her bookstore at closing time, sweeping floors while rain drummed against the windows. The bell above the door chimed. She looked up, ready to say they were closed. An elderly woman stood in the doorway. Silver hair perfectly styled, expensive coat, eyes sharp enough to cut glass. Isabella's breath stopped. Vivian Moretti, Damien's grandmother. The woman who'd allegedly betrayed them to Celeste. "Hello, Isabella." Vivian's voice was exactly as she remembered, commanding without being loud. Or is it Emily now? Hard to keep track. Isabella set down the broom slowly. "How did you find me?" "Please, I built an empire on finding people who didn't want to be found. Though I'll admit your witness protection was more thorough than expected. Took me nearly a year." Vivian moved into the store, examining shelves with apparent interest. "Charming place. Very quaint." "What do you want?" "To talk. 5 minutes. Then I'll leave and you'll never see me again." Vivian turned to face her. "Unless you prefer I stand here until your husband arrives. I imagine he's less inclined toward conversation." Isabella's hands shook. She balled them into fists. 5 minutes. Vivian settled into one of the reading chairs like she owned it. "I didn't betray Damien to Celeste. That was a lie she invented to destroy what you'd built together." "Then how did she find us?" "She hired hackers. Good ones. They accessed Damien's phone remotely, disabled the GPS, tracked his prior movements to narrow location possibilities. Then she hired Volkov to surveil potential areas until he found you." Vivian's expression was unreadable. "I had nothing to do with it, but Damien believed I did, because at the time I supported the arranged marriage, and I told him family came first." "You did support it." "I supported the strategic alliance. I didn't support watching my grandson become a hollow version of himself." Vivian leaned forward. "When you entered his life, Isabella, something changed. He smiled, laughed, became human again instead of the weapon Vincent was molding him into. I saw that at the dinner table, recognized it immediately." "Then why didn't you help us?" "I tried. In my way. By pretending to accept the relationship publicly. By slowing Vincent's timeline. By giving you both space to figure out what you actually wanted." Vivian's voice softened. "But I'm an old woman who spent 60 years in a world that doesn't forgive weakness. And I made the mistake of thinking I could control outcomes I had no business controlling." Isabella stared at her. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because my son is in prison. My empire is destroyed. And my grandson thinks I betrayed him when the truth is—" Vivian's mask cracked for just a moment. "The truth is I loved him too much to let him become his father. And you saved him from that fate. So I'm here to say thank you. And to tell you that if anyone else from the family comes for either of you, they'll answer to me first. You have no power anymore. I have fear, respect, 50 years of accumulated favors and debts. That kind of power doesn't disappear just because the business does." Vivian stood. "You and Damien are safe. I'll make sure of it. Not because I want forgiveness, but because it's the only decent thing I have left to do." She moved toward the door. "Mrs. Moretti." Isabella's voice stopped her. "Does he know? That you didn't betray him?" "No, and I won't tell him. Let him believe whatever helps him sleep at night." Vivian's smile was sad. "Some bridges burn so completely that rebuilding them only creates new fires. Better to leave the ashes where they fell." She left without another word. Isabella stood alone in her bookstore for a long time, processing what had just happened. When Damien arrived to walk her home, she almost told him, then looked at his face. Peaceful, content, free from the weight he'd carried for 32 years, and decided some truths could stay buried. Let him believe his grandmother had betrayed him. It was easier than admitting she'd loved him all along. 2 years after leaving New York, Isabella woke up on her 29th birthday to find Damien already gone from bed. She found him in the garden, planting roses. "You hate gardening," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "I hate weeding. Planting's different. He stood, wiped dirt off his hands. These are for you. Happy birthday. Isabella moved closer. You bought me roses? I planted you roses. There's a difference. He pulled her against him. These will bloom every year, long after we're gone from this place. A reminder that we existed here, that we built something real. Getting philosophical in your old age. Getting sentimental? He kissed her forehead. Also, there's a box inside. Real presents in there. She found it on the kitchen table, small, wrapped in newspaper because Damien had never learned proper gift presentation. Inside was a key. What's this? Key to the building next to your bookstore. It went up for sale last week. I bought it. Damien leaned against the counter. Thought maybe you could expand. Add more space for events. Maybe a real cafe instead of just the coffee bar. Isabella stared at the key. That building costs everything I've saved for 2 years. I know. Worth it. Damien. James, he corrected gently, at least in public. James. She said the name like a prayer. This is too much. It's not enough. It'll never be enough for what you gave up to be here. He crossed to her, took both her hands. You lost your family, your identity, your entire life because I kissed you in my office and dragged you into hell. So if I can buy you a building to expand your dream, I'm buying you the damn building. Isabella laughed through sudden tears. You're ridiculous. I'm in love. He pulled her close. There's a difference. They stood there in their kitchen, small, ordinary, nothing like the penthouse that used to define their lives. And Isabella realized something. She'd never been happier. Not before the chaos. Not during. Only after. When they were nobody, living nowhere, with nothing except each other. That night, Damien made dinner, badly, because he still couldn't cook despite 2 years of practice. They ate on the back porch, watching the sun set over Portland's skyline. And Isabella thought about the girl from Queens who'd accepted a job she didn't understand with a man she'd never met. Thought about the kiss that changed everything, the fake relationship that became real, the empire that fell, the people they'd been and the people they'd become. Do you miss it? She asked quietly. Any of it? Damien was silent for a long moment. Sometimes I miss the power, the certainty of knowing exactly who I was and what I could control. He looked at her. But then I remember that version of me was slowly dying, becoming more like Vincent every day. And I realize I don't miss the man I was. I prefer the man I'm becoming. Who's that? Someone who plants roses, makes terrible dinners, teaches kids about business ethics because I learned the hard way what happens when you ignore them. His smile was soft. Someone who loves his wife enough to let the past stay dead so the future has room to grow. Isabella leaned against his shoulder. That's a good man. I'm trying to be. You already are. They sat in comfortable silence while the sky turned from gold to purple to black. And somewhere in Manhattan, in a prison cell that would hold him for the next 40 years, Vincent Moretti probably raged against the son who'd destroyed everything he'd built. But his rage didn't matter anymore. Couldn't touch them. Couldn't change the fact that Isabella and Damien had survived every weapon thrown at them and come out the other side still standing, still together, still choosing each other every single day. 3 years after fleeing New York, Isabella stood in her expanded bookstore during the grand opening celebration. The space overflowed with people, customers who'd become friends, students from Damien's classes, neighbors who'd watched them rebuild their lives from ashes. Maria had sent flowers with a card that just said, "Proud of you." Morrison had sent a generic congratulations that Isabella suspected violated about 15 federal protocols. Even the local newspaper ran a story about the small business that had become a community cornerstone. Nobody mentioned witness protection. Nobody knew the real story. To Portland, they were just James and Emily Whitaker, nice couple, kept to themselves mostly, built something good from nothing. And that was enough. Damien found her at the end of the night after the last customer had left, standing in the empty store looking at everything they'd created. You did it, he said quietly. We did it. She turned to face him. Every piece of this exists because you believed I could build something worth believing in. I believed in you. The rest was all you. Isabella moved closer. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air between them. Damien's expression went through about 17 different emotions in 3 seconds. You're... what? Pregnant. 8 weeks. I found out this morning. Wanted to tell you somewhere special. She gestured at the bookstore. This felt right. We're having a baby. Yes. A real baby. That's going to be half me. Terrifying, isn't it? Damien started laughing, pure, unrestrained joy. He picked Isabella up, spun her around despite her protests, kissed her like she'd just given him the entire world. We're having a baby, he repeated, setting her down carefully. A child who'll never know the name Moretti. Who'll grow up thinking we're boring, normal parents with boring, normal lives. Who'll never understand what we survived to get here. Is that okay? It's perfect. He rested his hand on her still flat stomach. They get to be ordinary. Get to choose their own path without empires or expectations or violence. That's everything I never had. Everything I always wanted to give. Isabella covered his hand with hers. Then let's give it to them. They locked up the bookstore together, walked home through rain-slicked streets holding hands. And somewhere between then and forever, Isabella Cruz, who'd been nobody from nowhere with nothing to lose, became somebody's wife, somebody's partner, and soon, somebody's mother. The girl who'd survived the impossible. The woman who'd brought down an empire. The human being who'd learned that love was worth every risk, every sacrifice, every moment of terror. Because in the end, survival wasn't about power or money or names that inspired fear. It was about finding one person worth becoming nobody for, and building everything from that choice. 7 years after leaving New York, on a rainy Sunday morning that felt like every other Sunday morning in their perfectly ordinary life, Isabella stood in their kitchen making pancakes while Damien helped their daughter, Sophie, age 4, dark hair, and her father's sharp eyes, build a tower out of blocks. Their son, Marcus, age 2, named after the security chief who'd protected them and never asked questions, was napping upstairs. The radio played soft jazz, coffee brewed. Life happened in the small, unremarkable moments that meant everything. Mama, can we go to the bookstore today? Sophie looked up with the kind of hopefulness only 4-year-olds could generate. Maybe after lunch. It's Sunday. People need rest. But I want to read the dragon book. The dragon book will be there tomorrow, Sophie pouted. Damien caught Isabella's eye and grinned. This was their life now. Negotiations over dragon books. Towers that collapsed and had to be rebuilt. Pancakes that burned while Isabella got distracted answering questions about how clouds worked. Normal. Chaotic. Perfect. That night, after the kids were asleep and the house was quiet, Isabella and Damien sat on the porch watching rain fall. Do you ever think about telling them? Isabella asked. When they're older. About who we really were. Sometimes. Damien's hand found hers automatically. But then I think about how that story ends with people dying in our living room and their mother killing someone to protect me. And I decide maybe some stories are better left untold. You think they'll find out anyway? Probably. The internet never really forgets. Someday they'll Google our real names and discover their parents were part of the biggest organized crime trial of the decade. He squeezed her hand. When that happens, we tell them the truth. That we were trapped in a world we didn't choose and fought like hell to escape it. That we chose each other over everything else. And that they exist because we survived. That's a heavy story for kids. It's a true story. That's heavier. Isabella leaned against his shoulder. I love you, in case I don't say it enough. You say it constantly. I mean it constantly. I know. He kissed the top of her head. I love you too. Every version of you. The girl who walked into my office. The woman who stood beside me in federal court. The mother who makes pancakes and answers impossible questions about clouds. All of you. They sat in comfortable silence. And in that silence, Isabella understood something she'd spent years trying to articulate. They hadn't just survived the empire. They'd survived becoming new people. The hardest transformation wasn't escaping Vincent Moretti or testifying against criminals or learning to live under fake names. It was learning to be soft after years of armor, learning to trust after being betrayed, learning to build instead of destroy. That was the real victory. Not the trial verdict or the prison sentences or even the fact that they'd made it out alive. The victory was sitting on a porch in Portland, Oregon, holding hands with the person you'd chosen to become nobody with, knowing your children were sleeping safely upstairs, and feeling, for the first time in your entire life, at peace. The rain continued falling, washing away footprints, erasing evidence, making new things possible. And Isabella Cruz Moretti Whitaker, woman of many names, survivor of impossible circumstances, builder of ordinary miracles, closed her eyes and let the sound of rain drown out every ghost that still whispered in the dark. She'd paid the price for survival, counted every cost, lost people she loved, pieces of herself she'd never get back, years of life spent looking over her shoulder. But sitting here, holding Damien's hand while their children slept and the future stretched ahead like an open road, she'd do it all again, every terrifying moment, every impossible choice, every sacrifice that brought her here. Because this quiet, ordinary, beautifully mundane life was worth every drop of blood spilled to earn it. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.